Hey, good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, good evening, wherever you are tuning into this show. Thank you for being here. It's Saturday afternoon here in Florida, and we're going to be talking with Christian Gossett. We're going to be talking about his career. We're going to be looking at some art for sale. It's going to be a really fun conversation. But before we get started, I wanted to go over, as always, kind of the ground rules on the sale, just beginning of the show, and then I'll talk about it, of course, before we do the actual sale of the artwork. But as a reminder, you did notice that Third Eye Comics is a part of today's show, and we're always happy to have them here. They're fantastic on fulfillment and have been a really good partner for the interview sales shows that we've done over the last year and a half. So just as a reminder, when we do sales with Third Eye, you will be sending your claim into Nicole at thirdeyecomics.com. So rather than handling that in the chat window and typing your claims and whatnot, you'll be doing it via email. And when you send that email in, as long as the subject has anything related to Christian in the subject line, we'll be happy. But be sure in the body of your email to note the lot number and your name when you send that email. And Nicole will take the first email that she gets for that lot and reply and let them know that they got it. She typically also replies to anybody. If there's a second or third person interested in a piece of art, she'll let them know that they didn't get it. But that's how you know that you got it. When the show is over, Nicole and Third Eye Comics will handle all the invoicing and fulfillment of the artworks that have been claimed today. And as you can see, just a reminder, yes, it is that wonderful logo with the creature with the single eye on his forehead and loving it as his third eye. So, but last but not least, I have to mention that all the artwork sales that happen today don't include shipping. So domestic shipping is $20, international is $50. Of course, you can combine on shipping for the artwork. And while not stated, we always expect payment within 48 hours. So I'm sure that'll be outlined when you get the invoices and everything. But there are no time payments or that sort of thing when we do sales shows on the channel in this manner. So there you have it. So let's get the show started here. I know, well, actually, I see Christian isn't at his computer just a second, but he'll be there in a moment. But at the end of the day, you know how these things go. But I appreciate everybody being in the chat on a Saturday afternoon. There's lots of things you can be doing on a Saturday afternoon, but hanging out here with us is is always a pleasure. And there you go. Marcus has his representation of Third Eyes on there. All right. Well, here we go. Christian is ready and raring to go. Hey, Christian, how are you today?
Hey, Bill. I'm great. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have to get it out of the way. You don't look anything like the photograph that that if you Google your name anywhere, you look like a clean cut gentleman. But you pretty much, we've got about the same hair length thing going on.
Yeah, totally. That someone said to me, my dear friend said to me during the pandemic, no, don't cut your own hair. Let it grow. It's really good for it. And it just hasn't stopped from there.
I don't blame you. That's I have about that same time. Well, maybe a year before the pandemic, I started letting it grow out, and then I was just like, whatever. It's just gonna go.
Yeah.
Hey, and there's a funny question. I have to answer it. Dwayne's a pain wanted to know if there were any tentacle pieces, and our sketchbook theme was voted on the other night, and for the month of March, and tentacles was the thing. And the funny thing is, there is actually a piece with tentacles in it today. So. A Superman piece.
Yes.
So Dwayne, you're like reading our minds without even having seen the artwork. So good question.
That was my first tentacles that I was ever paid to do, were those Superman tentacles.
So anybody looking to get a piece of art to share in next month's sketchbook, you'll have the opportunity later on in the show. So Christian, tell me a bit about. I mean, I know you got an early start in comics, but were you always a comics fan growing up? I mean, and was art really always the kind of focus? You knew that this was a career path for you, and when did that start?
Gosh, it started so young. My mother was an art student in New York when she met my dad, and she had me as soon as she could. She was putting pads of paper in front of me and pencils and pens and just letting me go. We had a funny game. I would say to my mother, this is around, kindergarten, first grade. I'd say, Mom, I'm bored. She'd be, all right, well, go clean your room then. And I was like, oh no, she got me. Why did I open my mouth? And I'd be like, and then she'd tell you what, she'd make me a deal. If you sit down and draw for as long as you draw, you don't have to clean your room. And I was like, what? It really worked. I just drew and drew and drew. And good old mom, as I would draw so long that and by the time it was done, my room was clean. She'd clean my room. She was so happy that I was drawing. So she tricked me. Good old Ma.
That's awesome. I mean, I had aspirations as a kid to be an artist too, and my mom was probably my biggest supporter. Same thing. She would probably clean my room, or probably did clean my room numerous times. As long as I was drawing, she was happy. So
Yeah,
it's always great to have somebody that supportive in your corner.
it really was, really was. And Dad was an actor. He was supportive. And my mom bought my first comics. I tried to convince her I had invented Dr. Doom when I was about 7 years old. She played along with it. So I was really fortunate.
Your father was an actor?
Yeah, he was. He was an actor. He played a lot of, my father was very New York tough guy type from there. And in the 70s, there were a lot of shows based in New York. So he played a lot of cab drivers and cops and, tough guys. And they loved that accent of his. He was on Charlie's Angels, Beretta, Different Strokes. He was all those 70s shows where whenever they needed a New York sounding guy. That was my dad. Too bad Sopranos was too late for him. I'm sure he would have got on there.
Well, that's awesome. That's fun. I mean, my dad was a welder, so nothing near as glamorous or cool as that. But that's kind of interesting to have been able to grow up around somebody, in the performing arts like that. I mean, do you feel like kind of influences your career path today? The work that you do in film.
It definitely. I grew up around him. Pop was when he wanted to see a movie, he would let my brother and I stay home from school, and we'd go see the movie in the afternoon, which was super fun. That's how we saw Star Wars. And it's funny because my dad was never famous, right? He got his pension from the Actors Guild, but he was never got big. And he did work on big shows, but he was really a blue collar actor as far as they go. It's not really a legacy thing with him. It's like he was a working actor, loved his little under 5 parts, had offers for bigger parts, but didn't want to take them because he loved being at home with us. And but it definitely influenced me. In fact, growing up in Hollywood is a big part of my next comic that's coming out called Cthulhu Town, which is basically a really wealthy cult finds its way to Los Angeles because they're like, hey, these in the 1920s, they're like, these motion picture things are incredibly influential. And if we get a hold of them and we figure out how to use it, we can awaken Cthulhu through programming the masses to our will by these movie things.
Wow. Is this, how far along are you in that project?
I've got the first 12 pages drawn, the first 6 issues outlined. I'm going to launch it as a webtoon. I really think webtoons are amazing. There's such a great work being done by some really enthusiastic people online. And I just love it. I'm so into it. I love the vertical scroll. So I'll start it as that. And I'm in talks with a publisher to do it, the hard copy version as well. So kind of see if I can do both.
Wow. That's awesome.
Thanks.
I mean, I wish you the best on that. I love, independent projects like that where, you can tell it's something you're really, really into. You're going to pour your heart and soul into it.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. I'm so glad that that's clear. And I'll send you the first 6 pages after the show.
I would love to see it. I really would. Cthulhu. I'm a fan of Cthulhu. There's a Cthulhu artwork back there. You can't tell, but yes, no.
Right on.
It's a part of my DNA one way or another.
It's fascinating stuff. It really is.
It is. And the fact is it's a horror genre that so many creators have kind of, taken their own approach to it. And it could be so many different things. I love that, it's been in games, it's been in film, it's been in books. And now it's, and I'm sure it's been in comics, although I don't recall any, but now you're working on this project.
I'm so glad you say that because I can recommend, if you like Cthulhu, Alan Moore's Cthulhu stuff, Providence is amazing. The great Jason Burrows doing the artwork, really great stuff. And Neil Gaiman wrote an amazing Cthulhu one shot in kind of Sherlock Holmes's England. Really, you'll really enjoy it.
You're killing me here. Now I've got to go check. I'm taking notes. I always have a notepad handy when I'm talking.
So happy to help.
Yes. So back to that early stage, though. I mean, doing the art. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, you got to do some professional work before you were even 18. I mean, how did that even come about?
That was crazy. I was a busboy at a burger place here in LA, and the son's owner was a huge comic book fan. I mean, big pull guy on Wednesdays, had the full pull box, loved Alpha Flight, huge comic fan, introduced me to all this stuff. And one day on a break, I am just doodling on a napkin just for fun. I don't even know why. Just, because I've always drawn, right? And going back to mom and the whole "don't clean your room" thing, I was on a break. That's all I knew how to do was draw. So he's like, "Wow, why are you working for my parents, being a busboy? You should be drawing comics." And this is a true story. And I said, "Drawing comics? What I guess I was in theater school at the time. I love theater, still do." And he's like, "Come on, come on. We go to the comic book shop." And I swear to you, Bill, right there on the counter next to the cash register was a flyer that said "Comic Book Artist Wanted." And I grabbed it. And that day it was the first time I saw Watchmen. It was the first day I saw Dark Knight Returns. This was in 1988.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all this amazing Matt Wagner stuff, and TMNT was happening. And it was just all this crazy. It was a scene, as you'll remember. And I thought, well, this could be actually fun. And I got the job. And so that's how I started.
What was that first work?
The first work was a story about ninjas, and it was for a magazine called Tales of the Ninja Warriors. It was an anthology. Rance Hosley was in that anthology. A few great people were on that. Frank Gomez, still working in animation, great artist. I was working on there. Some other guys, Roy Burdine. Some really, if you know animation, they all kind of all started in that book, and it was mine. They said it could be anything you want. It just has to have ninjas in it. And so I decided
you had to write it, draw it, letter it, everything.
Write it, draw it, letter it. Yeah, it was a real crash course. I got my Ames lettering guide, and I learned how to letter. It's so funny because my first lettering was so bad. It was so messy. I'd never inked before, so it was just a mess. But it's really great fun, and it ran for a year, and a little over a year. I had a great time, and really taught me a lot about storytelling. If you see the first panels, you can find Tales of the Ninja Warriors online, and it's funny because you see my first issues are like 16 panels a page, and with like this much lettering, this much art, really funny stuff. A real clinic in how not to do it, but you learn.
Did you save all that art?
Yes, I have a good amount of it.
That's good. Yeah, I would hope that you keep that.
Would you like me to share a piece with you so I can show?
Yeah, do you have it on your computer?
I do have one right here. Okay, so let's see. How do I share this?
There at the bottom of your screen, there should be a present button. Yes, and if you click that, it gives you a couple different options. You can share a window. So if you have an application open with that, and then just click share, then I can pull it up into our stream.
All right, cool. Do you see? Let's see, screen one. I'll put it on the screen. I think it's on screen. I think that's screen 3. Let me know if you see artwork on that.
Well, it hasn't popped up. It'll pop up as a camera on here for me. I don't see it yet.
Do you see it now?
No, you should be able to click on it, and then there'd be like a little share button will appear at the bottom.
I see.
If it doesn't work, we'll figure something out another time. But yeah, it's I'd love to.
Present, share screen, 2 monitors. Here we go. I'm gonna just share it right on screen 1, and then I'm gonna hit share. Now you should see it, right?
No, it's not coming up on here for some reason.
Bummer.
Well, actually, there was funny. It did have a little pop-up that said something about sharing was canceled. Not sure why. So something's amiss. I couldn't tell you why.
Yeah, Chrome has lost its permission to capture your screen. To fix it, go to System Preps.
No, that's too much work. But so Tales of the Ninja Warriors. So somebody could Google that, and if you say read online, they could find it, and there you'll be able to see your first professional work. Now, were you paid for the work?
Yeah, $75 a page.
Wow, well then that's not bad to start. I mean, you were probably thinking, wow, if I can get over to one of the big 2, I might make triple that or something, right? So.
Right. Yeah, in 1988, $75 a page. I was doing everything, but it was really cool people running it. Derek Gross was the editor. Bradley Peter Parker was the other editor. Really great guys, and I still own the content. They didn't take any of the rights. It was a really fun magazine. It was these little ninja stories, and the whole point of the magazine was this was a Hong Kong movie distributor, and they also distributed martial arts gear. So you could read your ninja story and then buy your shurikens or ninja outfits.
Dang. So they had, it was more than just a comic. It was a merchandising tool as well.
Absolutely.
So, well, then that's why they could pay you well too, because they obviously had, a lot more revenue coming in from these other sales. Wow,
Yeah,
that's actually a great model. I kind of like that.
it was. I bought my first Jackie Chan VHS from those guys.
Dang. Wow, well, that's very, very cool.
It was fun.
So dang. Well, so after that, then, I mean, you're not even 20, and you get to start working with LucasArts, right? I mean, how do you go from ninjas to that universe?
Friends. It was really, really kindness of a friend. My dear friend Frank Gomez. I had introduced him to Derek at Ninja Warriors, and so Frank is an amazing artist, so good, and he got a job immediately, and then he went to DC quickly thereafter. And when he was at DC, he met the great Tom Veach, brother of Rick Veach, and
Hmm.
Tom was writing Heir to the Empire for Dark Horse, and they said, "Hey, Frank." They liked Frank's art, but he has more of a like really fun, funky graffiti graphic style.
Yeah.
Not very Star Wars, definitely not at that time. And so they said, "Do you know anybody that would like to do Star Wars?" And he said, "Oh yeah, my friend Chris. He's all about that King Arthur stuff." So they recommended me, and I got the gig.
Wow. So, I mean, when you go through that, I mean, did you have to give a lot of samples, show that you could draw characters in the universe? So it wasn't like we've seen your work on, the Tales of the Ninjas, and you got the job just based on that, right?
There was definitely a sample test I had to pass, and I did this. I did this sample of it was Luke and R2, really short script, and they're hanging out. And then there's a scene where Han and the gang are in the Falcon and they're running away from Star Destroyers. You had to kind of show that you could do these kind of key moments in Star Wars, even though I was working on Tales of the Jedi,
Hmm.
issues 1 and 2, which took place 4,000 years before Luke Skywalker. So
Right.
I got the job, fortunately, and I got to do never a Star Destroyer or Luke or Han.
Well, that's unfortunate, but still, it had to have been pretty darn. Again, you're 19 or 18,
I was at
19.
that point, yeah, I was 19 on 18, 19 Ninja Warriors, and then on Star Wars 2021.
Well,
Yeah,
that
1920, yeah.
that doesn't happen too often.
No, no, definitely not. And it was such a blast. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff Wedding. I really enjoyed Tales of the Jedi. And I had free reign. I said, well, do you have any artwork like 4,000 years before the Star Wars galaxy as we know it? Like, what do you have reference wise? And they're all, dude, it's all you. And I was like, and when you're 20 years old, you're like, really? I get to what? Okay, I'll do it. And just dove in and had a great, great time.
Wow. So they really gave you a lot of liberty because they didn't really have any visual references for that period either.
They did not. They did not. Yeah, it was all me, just throwing stuff in, inventing new lightsabers and inventing, new. I went very feudal Japan. I took the Kurosawa influences and really poured them in there,
Hmm.
and had a great time. Big
So
galleons, lots of engines on the ships.
right, right.
I was so
So
into
that's really which writers did you get to work with when you were doing
it.
that?
So I worked with Tom Veach on the at first, and then Kevin J. Anderson came on, and so was
Mhm.
Tom and Kevin. And then Kevin and I did a few Tales of the Jedi series up to Redemption, which was there's a few pieces of artwork from Redemption here today, and some stuff from Tales of the Jedi that we'll go into.
Fantastic. But so were you working like in a studio, or were you able to work from home during that period?
Oh wow, great question. I did work from home. I worked from home. I was first. I was still only college age, so I was at my folks' place still. And then I moved with the Tales of the Jedi money. I decided I was going to move to Berkeley, California. So I lived in Berkeley when I was doing the majority of the Star Wars stuff, and that was fun. It was my first apartment. It was tiny. It was like a bedroom and a kitchen, and it had this funky little room off to the side with these big windows and this beautiful tree in the backyard. It was really just a sweet place to draw when you're kind of California hippie like me.
That sounds incredible. I mean, I think I read somewhere that the royalties were good in those early days too.
The royalties were so good. I'm so sorry to make young people jealous these days, and I'm but gosh, my first royalty check from Tales of the Jedi was $19,000. I bought a car.
Wow.
Yeah, $19,000 off one issue
Incredible.
of Tales of the Jedi. It was crazy. The '90s.
Yeah, those days aren't around like they used to be,
I
but
know.
that's wonderful though.
Yeah, I really feel bad for the young people trying to make it in comics today because it's tough compared to what we had.
So how did that creativity and that flexibility that you had in that universe? I mean, how did that kind of translate? I mean, obviously, you were the designer of the unique lightsaber that Darth Maul ended up using. But of course, you did it, long before that, the movie. But I mean, how did those things have to get approved, or was there any, what kind of checks and balances system did the Star Wars universe have for those comic books?
It was the licensing department, and
Yeah.
so everything we did had to be cleared. At that point, it was 1993, and I said, "Well, look, it's 4,000 years before Luke Skywalker, so I need to do some stuff. Things have to look different." And they didn't give me any reference; they just said, "Go for it." So I said, "All right, well, I'll get into George Lucas's influences. Who influenced him?" And all the designs came from there. All the designs came from his kind of exploration, what he loved as a kid, fast cars and Kurosawa and Joseph Campbell, all the things that he as much influence as he brought in, the stuff he was telling his people when they made Star Wars, I was trying to get to that stuff, which
Hmm.
was a quest back then. There was no internet, so I had to drive around to these old movie bookstores and in my dad's Pinto, and that was my server, was this Pinto, and I would go, and those books were out of print at that point.
Hmm.
It's crazy to think about it now, but in 1988, it's Star Wars was kind of done. Heir to the Empire had just come out, and it was like, oh, a comic book. There'll never be more movies. Star Wars will never be on television.
Hmm.
So all those bookstores, all those books were out of print. All those great references from Joe Johnston and Ralph McQuarrie and all the great works that made those movies, you couldn't find them. So I went, found them, ripped those books apart. Retro Design in the Galaxy, and yeah, everything had to be approved by licensing. Licensing really didn't like my crazy stuff. They were like, double-bladed lightsaber, that's weird. And I said, I begged them to show it to George. Everybody at Dark Horse was really supportive. Dan Thorson, my editor, was incredibly supportive. I told him, I was like, Dan, I'm telling you, this double-bladed lightsaber, all these lightsabers, this curved handle lightsaber, there's other lightsabers that I invented, end of a pole arm, a bow and arrow thing with the crystal, the kyber crystal on the end. At the time, a Dagon crystal. Nerd alert. But but all that stuff was very radical, and they didn't like it. And I said, you guys, I promise, if you show this to George Lucas, he will like it. And if he doesn't, I will defer. If he says I'm out on a limb, I will absolutely comply. And I did some sketches, showed them to George, and he approved them all. So
Wow. Now, did you hold on to those sketches?
yes. I sent the original. Steven Sansweet has my original drawing. I sent it to him. I wanted this to go so bad that I did this original, the double-bladed lightsaber with XR Kun holding it. And I didn't want to send a Xerox. Xeroxes were terrible at the time. There was no scanning.
Right.
So I was like, George needs to see the lines. He needs to see the love and the passion. So I sent the original. So it's at Rancho Obi-Wan to this day. But I have a copy. I have it up on my wall. And I have the facts. What's really cool is Dark Horse sent me the facts of Lucas's approval, saying he approved the stuff. That I still have, which is really cool.
He didn't say anything, but I approve it. It would have been nice to have like, this guy might be onto something.
I did hear a wonderful story from my friend Ian McCaig years later. For those of you who know the wonderful Ian McCaig, the great immortal Ian McCaig, I met him in New Zealand years later, and I told him this story, and he said, "That was you?" And I was like, whoa, what do you mean? What are you talking about? And he said, well, the day that Doug Chang and I presented Darth Maul to George, we were sad because we were like, well, okay, cool. He likes Darth Maul. And they said, well, George, here's the bad news. We can't think of a weapon for him. We tried many things. Nothing's really clicking. We don't have anything to show you. And George said, you know what? Hold on. There's something from the comic books. And he got my drawing out. And Ian said that's the first time he saw that drawing. And he couldn't believe it was an original. He's like, who did that? Why is this an original? and it went from there. Doug Chang took it over and kind of took my design was very, very designed for 4,000 years before the Star Wars galaxy. And Doug took it and made it his own. But the concept of two blades happens there. And I'm still really, really so grateful to Dan Thorsland at Dark Horse for supporting me and for Lucy Wilson for showing it to George, and for George for seeing that I wasn't crazy, that it was very Star Wars-esque idea.
That's incredible. I mean, I don't think we've ever mentioned Ian's name on this channel either. We don't really dive too much into that area of artwork. But no, I've been a huge fan of Ian's work for a long time.
He loves comics. He wants to do a comic so bad. He's so great. He's such a wonderful guy. I just spoke to him a few days ago, and he would love to do a comic, but it's tough. You know, the market is tough for someone when you're used to making movie money. It's hard to do a comic.
But that is true, unless it's a labor of love, right? I mean, then it doesn't matter what you're getting. But I get it. But wow, what a great story, man. I mean, that's is that like your closest brush with Lucas as far as like coming up with unique ideas and things, or
It is, yeah. No, it is. I haven't pursued a lot of work up there. I've been doing other things, you know, but yeah, that's the closest. I'm about to do a Star Wars fan film with my buddy John Munoz.
Oh, really?
Yeah, totally. I've got this really fun idea about it. I don't know if I should go into it, but I'm about to do a short little film about, you know, you saw Andor, right?
I did. I was going to say you already have a history of doing fan films.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. So I got this one cute little idea that I want to do. John Munoz, my buddy, is an amazing 3D artist, animator, director, and I told him about it. We went to a screening of Del Toro's Pinocchio, where Guillermo was, you know, talking about the movie, did a Q&A after Jim Cameron moderated, Jim Cameron was a great moderator, by the way. That guy can moderate a panel, seriously. And like, you'd think he would be like over it. No way. He was amazing. Wow. And so we're talking about it. We're all psyched up, you know, having seen two of our heroes on stage. And I said, hey, man, I got this Star Wars idea. It's a fan film. Like, do you have time to do a fan film? And he's all, if it's Star Wars, yeah. So we're going to do this like little 3-minute thing. It's basically like, did you see THX 1138?
Yeah.
Okay. And you saw Andor, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you get where I'm going. It's like, that's what I'll say. It's kind of a Star Wars meets THX 1138 for like 3 minutes. It's going to be super fun.
Well, I'm looking. Well, when are you going to start production on that, though? Do you have a date?
This year, we have our first meeting. We're going to screen THX because I told me idea, and he's like, you know, the first thing I have to do is see the movie. So he's going to come over. We're going to watch the movie. We're going to do a little brainstorm session, knock down the script. It's like 5 pages now. I want to get it down to like 3, and it'll probably balloon up to 7.
Oh, well, you have to have some things that you can leave on the cutting room floor. So
exactly. So yeah, this year.
That's great. I mean, I've been doing a lot of short video things, you know, on the channel, whether it's memes or putting together a few documentaries. I've been enjoying doing that. I did a lot of that in college, but it is so much fun, right? It's your own thing. You're kind of putting your own creativity onto something, even if it's a simple documentary. I really, you know, I'm in my mid-50s now, and I feel like I'm finally getting to do creative things again. You know, I went to art school, and then I was not creative for 30 years. And now it's like, wow, all these mediums have opened up to me that I never thought I would, you know, have the time to do. But so yeah, I'm in awe of all the extra things that you're able to have your hands in, you know, with regards to doing the fan films, because you're going to get such a good the production value. I mean, the Andor was just amazing. I mean, I'm thinking, oh, okay, you know, it might be a little heavy on 3D, and the 3D might not be so good. It was fantastic.
Yeah, it really was. I'm really glad you're getting to do creative stuff again, man. And not that this isn't incredibly creative what you do, and I know that everybody I've talked to about being able to be on your show and sell their art is so grateful to this thing you've created. So thanks again.
No, it's my pleasure. I never knew where I would have been in this position, you know, 3 years ago, let alone, you know, like 20 years ago. But I'm enjoying every minute of it.
Right on.
Samuel made an interesting comment. He said it must be crazy for you to see all the Star Wars media that's out there now. I mean, given the fact that you thought when you were doing the comics that this might be it, right? The movies are over at that point, and comics seems like it would probably be a good venue to continue the storylines. I mean, how do you view where things are at now with, you know, the miniseries coming out, you know, on Disney Plus all the time? I mean, kind of a hiatus on the movies at the moment, but still, there's more Star Wars now than there's ever been.
Yeah, definitely. Really quick before I answer, I want to say hi to Jeff Victor, my buddy and a former student of mine. Hey, Jeff, glad to see you here. And also Mike, thanks, Mike Bravenek, for your mentions on there on the chat. I'm totally checking the chat. And
Awesome.
Thanks to everybody for being here. I really appreciate it. And yes, it is crazy. It's always wonderful when I see something that I worked on make it into canon. Like there's these great, BioWare is really awesome about getting my stuff into there. They characters I've designed or stuff I've done. BioWare's, the designers there have done a great job of kind of mentioning, at least kind of giving shout outs to Tales of the Jedi and the Keldroma saga. And of course, it's crazy to see on Bad Batch they went to Onderon, and
Mhm.
Onderon. I was the first guy to ever draw Onderon and the Beasts of Onderon. So it's always fun when you see that the stuff, because JJ came in and did that whole Scourge where he was like, oh, there's no, all that old stuff is gone. It's not part of the canon, and it's been wonderful to see Filoni bring it back. And the current Star Wars makers, Favreau and Filoni, they're like, nah, 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 it's all Star Wars. we're gonna take what we want. It's all, it's like 30, 40 years of great stuff. We're not gonna just cast it aside.
Right. So do you have relationships with people at BioWare? Do you think is that why?
I don't. I love their games. I played
Yeah.
Neverwinter Nights forever, and I love Jade Empire. I love their games. Those Canadians, man.
I was a huge fan of Neverwinter Nights. I
Right.
actually played it twice because I played it seemingly for like 6 or 8 months, loved it, and then I tried finding something to replace it, and there was nothing that came close to it. So I went back and played it again.
So
It was
good.
that good. It
It was.
was. For
I
those
love
of you out there who don't know, like I don't even, what would you want to call it? It's a role playing game, but boy, the story was so deep. The characters were great. I mean, it was one of the best games. I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, it's like I haven't played it in probably 8 years. I want to go back and play it again. It was that
so
good.
good, so good. And if you like Knights of the Old Republic, it was that it
Mhm.
totally, gained a lot from Neverwinter Nights. Like they
Okay.
brought all this great stuff they brought from Neverwinter Nights into Knights of the Old Republic, which was another great game that they did. Yeah, big Bioware fan. That opening theme music of Neverwinter Nights. Every time I booted up the program, I was just like, "Yeah, let's do it."
Exactly. No, that's funny. I mean, I don't think I've ever talked to anybody who would know what that game is. So I'm happy because while I did a lot of gaming, I've never really been like a social gamer. Not in that way. So I've never really ever known anybody else who's ever played that. So
Oh my god,
that
so
is
great.
that is amazing. But so comics wise, I mean, I know we have different. We have some DC stuff. We have essentially some Marvel things. I mean, how did you go from working in the Star Wars universe to getting work at the big two?
So Star Wars was taught me a lot. I learned a lot on Tales of the Jedi, and one of the things I learned was how badly I wanted to try my hand at inventing an intellectual property. I had
Mhm.
invented my Tales of the Ninja Warrior story was the first time I got to do that. It was super fun, and I wanted to do it again. And so I invented the Red Star. I took my dad's stories about World War II and the Russians fighting off the Nazis in the 1940s, and I added Star Wars to that, and I made the Red Star. And that really got me the attention at the big two.
Ah, okay. I wasn't sure if one came before the other, so it was Red Star that really
Yes.
got. Okay, well, that's great.
Yeah, it was good fun. And fortunately I had gone from Lucasfilm to Activision, and I'd learned about 3D and CG, and I worked with my dear friends at Neversoft. For those of you who played Tony Hawk Pro Skater, if you played any of those games, or even what was that? Guitar Hero,
Mhm.
then you've been, or Call of Duty, you played games by my pals at Neversoft, who are the baddest ass dudes in video games. Joel Jewett, the greatest, and his wife Sandy, the greatest video game executives in the history of video games. That, in my experience, super cool people, great to their people. Really took care of us all the time as people, not just as employees, and
Mhm.
that's why the games were great. And so I learned from them about CG, and I brought CG to the comics page in Red Star, and that kind of was really shook things up, and it was a blast. And nowadays, to see on Webtoon, everybody's doing it right now. There's so many 3D models everywhere. The technology's become way less expensive, and you see this kind of this paradigm of 3D environments and 2D drawn characters digitally painted, and it's really exciting to see. We were doing it 20 years ago, and it was wonderful. We had a great time doing it, and I'm just really happy to see how far it's come. And
So,
shout out to Geek Chic. Hey, Geek Chic, thanks for being here.
oh, there we are. So I didn't see that initially. There we go.
Cheers.
But and Simple Tragic Collectibles says still hoping Red Star gets an adaptation someday. I reread those oversized hardcovers every year at least.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, me too. We just need recapitalization. We need a super fan to come in and be like, that it's really about recapitalization. Red Star was first financed by my dear friends. It was all of us, my D&D pals, my D&D group.
Mhm.
We put our life savings together and made it a thing. Went to Image and got approved by Larry Martyr, and we got a lot of support from Image Central at the time, and they put us on the cover of previews. Thanks again for that, Image Central. And we were off and running, just just a little D&D group that decided to make a comic book, and it was a blast. So that's all we need for Red Star, is someone else to come in and really make that happen. And that's what it comes down to a lot of the time, is funding.
Interesting. So, one of the things I wanted to ask you was, why go the CG route? Because back in 2000 or 99 or so, maybe when this thing was germinating, computers weren't really that good. And so it wasn't because you were trying to, make your workflow any easier. In fact, you were compounding all the problems, and in some ways probably alienating a base that says, that we're looking at it saying, do I really want a computer generated comic book, as far as the artwork goes, the rendering, because that was pretty alien to most of us.
It was, and it took a year for us to, I was myself, Byron Tallman and Alan Coulter, we did this R&D process. And because we knew it was too strange. It was this uncanny valley. It was 3D in the background, 2D in the foreground, digitally painted. And how do you make them meet in the middle? It took us a year of trial and error to get it to a point where it was aesthetically pleasing. And it really, we got it to a great effect. And that got me working at a workshop in New Zealand doing movies. And because it was just so revolutionary at the time, because it didn't look like it kind of worked against the CG, right? We made it invisible. We didn't feature that we were doing CG. We took the best we possibly could from CG and hid the rest. Like a good special effect, it just disappears on the page. And it was just a great time. We traveled the world. We went to Angoulême. Thanks again, Thierry Mornay from Semic at the time, a great comic book legend, who got the team to France on a signing tour that I'll never forget. And thanks again to my dear friend William Garretts, who got me down to Australia and New Zealand to meet the Weta guys. And it was just a great trip.
I can't imagine what all that would have been like. I mean, because I was playing a lot of games at that point. I was playing Quake and some of the early, like Battlefield, some of those games at that time, and it was definitely an interesting time. I mean, 3D, was really just kind of coming into its own as far as modeling and characters and seeing games and things that were like that. CG was starting to become more prevalent in the film. So yeah, you were definitely kind of ahead of the curve on that. I mean, because half of the work that's out there today is done digitally, one way or another, all the lettering, the coloring, I mean, you name it. And so yeah, definitely a unique approach. But I mean, I have to, I just have to say, I mean, consciously, I mean, because there's still, you're still, pencil drawing a lot of the panel work.
Yeah.
Which again, another unique approach, of course, was, there weren't many books that were done in that way, where you were really focusing on separate characters to make up a panel or drawing panels. I mean, you can think of like George Pratt's Natsuki and a few other books where they were drawn, where you're not drawing the whole page with all the panels on it. You really had to pull things together in, during production. So lots of things that were just not standard. I mean, and all of this was kind of coming from you, or was it some of your other collaborators that saw these other ways to work?
It was me, my crazy brain. I had been in that video game process. I worked on a couple of games on the PlayStation 1 and saw the process and wanted to bring it to comics. At that point, entertainment was going from purely passive to experiential. People they wanted to play Spider-Man. They didn't want to just read about Spider-Man. And I thought, it just looked so cool. I wanted to bring that video game look to the comic book page, but at the same time, make it a cinematic experience more than a game experience. And so that's what we were working toward. And yes, it was, we did a lecture at CAPS, and Sergio Aragones heard, I walked everybody through the pipeline of what we had to do to make a single page of the Red Star. And it was insane. And Sergio said, doesn't that take a lot of time? Can't you just draw it? And I was like, yes, Sergio, you're right. It takes a lot of time. It was definitely just working really hard, not smart, but the result was amazing. And
it was, yeah. And I'm not trying to.
No. Please believe me.
Knowing where technology was, and and because I've been involved in computer work for a long time, I know how slow things were back then.
It was insane. Just transferring files. Poor Richard Starkings. I was bringing over pages of the Red Star on a Jazz drive.
Could have been a zip drive during that time, or I guess zip drives were almost probably out of fashion at that
Yeah,
point.
zip
But
and
I get you.
zips and then jazz. He needed jazz because he needed the extra storage. But no, it was insane to do that at that time,
Mhm.
and I'm glad I did. But yes, it was crazy, and you know we yes, thank you for acknowledging how difficult it was technically to do that book because it's not something that you get credit for, right? No one gets credit for it. All we get credit for is, hey, your book's late.
Right. No, well, I was really curious because I just knew that you were putting a lot more on your shoulders to complete an issue, and you had to learn things on the fly. So it wasn't like Sergio said, couldn't you just draw it? I mean, it,
I,
that's I could see where some, you would be getting that question, a lot. But I think at the end of the day, the final product was worth the effort to kind of go through that. I think you probably educated, younger generations on, that on things that they could do in the world of comics and still be creative in a fashion that they wanted to, that they could flourish in. I mean, not everybody is wants to be a traditional illustrator, and that's okay. You can still be a great storyteller, and it doesn't matter what the tools are that you use to do that, as long as you're telling great stories.
yeah, exactly. And we were really. I still think about how well received and you're right. It was amazing that it was a risk. We were like, oh man, people are going to think that we're, invading this medium that they love with this newfangled stuff, and they're going to hate us. But Joe Quesada was incredibly supportive. Brian Michael Bendis was incredibly supportive. Jim, of course, at Central at Image, they believed in us. Who was it? Richard Starkings was more than excited to be on the book. I was so happy. I wrote him. I cold emailed him. I'm like, you're really like too expensive, right? I can't have like Comic Craft on my book. And we met in Santa Monica and had a great time. And him and his team did beautiful work on the book. I'm so grateful that we had Active Images on there.
Wow. That's that's incredible. And it like you said, it ended up being incredibly well received. I think it got, fantastic press. I think it's still one of the top 100 trade paperbacks out there. I mean, it's wonderful. I mean, and it was all your brainchild. I just think that's just so much fun and amazing to have created something like that.
It was super fun. And so the pieces here today, one of them is the cover for the 4th trade paperback. The trade paperback that was painted digitally by my friends at Weta Workshop, who I worked with on Peter Jackson's King Kong. And I've never had it for sale before. It's never been put up for sale. I'm just happy to show people at Comic Art Live that piece, to be able to show those pencils, even if it doesn't go today. I'm very happy to.
That's the flag one?
That's the flag one. Yeah, that's the cover, painted by my friend Paul Tobin. Paul Tobin has worked on many of you name a Weta film, he's most likely worked on it, including the Avatar films, the Lord of the Rings films, King Kong, you name it.
Yeah, that's really cool. So, when I remember going on to IMDB and just kind of reading all your credits and things. I mean, so you have done a fair amount of work in the gaming world as well, character design. I mean, clearly that's something that you had to do a lot of when you were working with Star Wars, but then that kind of skill set of character design kind of translated into doing work for gaming as well. I mean, can you talk a little bit about the work that you did there?
Absolutely. I want to say thank you to Malvin Velez for talking about how Red Star is still relevant. Thank you very much, Malvin.
Very true.
And yes, Ron, I do. I do commission work. Ronald Shepard.
I had that one highlighted. I was waiting for a moment, but okay, yeah. So you do. I mean, how would somebody reach out to you to find what your schedule might be? What's the best way?
It's always been very, very disorganized. So, Bill, if I could talk to you about maybe that, would you help me out?
Yeah. No, I can. And I know Ronald too. So I could, if there's some information you wanted me to pass over to Ronald, I can. And Ronald, I'll tell you that one of the items that we have for sale later is something right up your alley. It's a sketch cover. I didn't show that in any of the PR pieces that I was doing, but that'll be out there too. But yeah, no, please do. And I would just throw it out there that anybody who ends up being interested in something like that, feel free to reach out to me, because clearly I'll have an approach for you by talking to Christian after the show.
Awesome. That's great. And so games, love games. Activision was an incredible kind of entree into the business at the time. It was the Wild West. PlayStation 1, for those of you that love games and are thinking about getting into games, it's so wonderful to see how it's happened. PlayStation 1, a lot of gatekeepers, a lot of money to get in. It was very, very difficult. Nowadays, though, with the innovation of like the Switch and independent gaming, I'm a huge indie game fan. My favorite game that I just played was Cthulhu Saves Christmas on the Nintendo Switch. Fantastic game. I think it's available on other platforms as well. Super funny. If you like Cthulhu at all, you've got to play that game. The writing was so funny all the way through, several replays, and yeah. But it's been fascinating to watch the games go from these kind of AAA titles, like big cinematic movies, and television shows, to now a lot of people can do it. Three people made
Hmm.
these games. Three people can make a game. One person can make a game. And so I'm really encouraging of indie gaming, and I've designed for lots of different platforms. Worked for Microsoft. I worked for Sony, and over and over. It's a fascinating world, and it's now in everybody's hands. It's kind of like indie comics. I mean, you really can, if you find a programmer, find a great programmer, you can kind of team up and make a game.
Yeah, we've looked into my kids are very interested in 3D animation and gaming. So yeah, the whole world of just picking up assets, that kind of stuff wasn't there. I mean, really even 10 years ago, but you look at what Unreal, the Unreal Engine is allowed. And I remember doing game mods when the first Unreal game came out, right? I mean, that was so much fun. And yeah, no, so I did Duke Nukem mods back in the day.
Nice. Wow.
Yes, I made my own. I made a Viva Las Vegas one after the first Duke Nukem, and made my own slot machine graphics, and it was so much fun. I love messing around in that world. So I think it's really cool. I mean, you're the first person, creator that I've talked to that also has kind of dove into that area and just really enjoyed it. So I think that's fantastic. It's right up my alley, and we have Switches all over the place here, but because my kids play. They play Pokemon professionally on the DS, or
Wow.
not on DS, the Switch, and they're actually playing this weekend in Knoxville. So kind
That's
of watch.
amazing.
I'm trying to see how they're doing. They were doing okay up until now. So but at any rate, I think I love gaming. I wish I had more time to game, because it's just I mean, probably Neverwinter Nights was one of the last games that I got to really enjoy.
Yeah.
Yeah, sadly.
Speaking of gaming, there is a video game creating legend here on the chat. Chad Findley, my good friend from all the way back in the PlayStation 1 days. Chad Findley, hey man, thank you so much for coming out. Chad and I worked together since PlayStation 1. He worked on Mech Warrior 2, a legendary PC game
Oh
from back
yeah.
in the day. Man, the credits for Chad. Call of Duty, I mean, just one of those great pirates on the grand pirate galleon that was Neversoft. Video game, Neversoft Entertainment, just an amazing place to be. There should be a television series about Neversoft. It was such a cool, crazy place, full of wild personalities doing great stuff.
That's awesome. I'm glad to have some of the people from your social networks coming over here as well. I mean, it's fun. Yep. And I don't know who YouTube channel is, but they said it was fun that the Red Star game eventually got released. I know there was a lot of delays in that, as I recall, just from back in that it kind of bounced around. Somebody went bankrupt or something like that. And,
So amazing.
that had to have been so frustrating.
If anybody, I really should do a talk at GDC about the Red Star, how it went from a comic book to a video game. Jamil Moladina, who was running GDC at the time, was a big Red Star fan and came to Comic-Con, introduced himself, and was like single-handedly responsible for getting me to GDC, gave me a big old, the all access pass to GDC. And I literally had a gold master of the game. But at that point, the company had gone bankrupt, but they had made the game. What I needed was someone to manufacture. I needed someone to put up the $4 million to manufacture the game that was already done. And so
Right.
there I am with the gold master in my hand, walking around GDC, taking meetings with a bunch of people, telling them about the Red Star. And eventually it happened, thanks to my buddy Dan Jevons at Union Entertainment and his gang over there. And still friends with Dan, still grateful for that. It ended up being a great education. I didn't know anything about the licensing of a video game. I had made video games, and that was another thing. To have been just a sergeant, right? To have just been a concept designer and script writer at Activision, to go and to know what it's like when licensors come in from Marvel or something, and they're telling you how to make the game, and you're like, wow, those licensors, they're shot callers. They're telling us what to do, and we got to do it. And then to be that person calling the shots with a game team in Texas, in Austin, working on that. it's just such an education, and it was just great fun. It's just all been great fun.
Wow. So you got to be the guy with the shot collar, making
Yeah.
sure that your game
Gosh.
came across and looked exactly the way you wanted it.
Yeah, totally. It was yeah, a lot of great support. And you know what, it's so cool you mentioned modding, because that's one of the things I'm bummed about, is that I missed out on the modding scene. I
Mm.
really didn't get, I wanted to so bad, but I just I never made the opportunity to get in there. It's really cool.
I really enjoyed it. It was very creative. I met some friends that I'm still really close with today. I mean, one of the gentlemen who helped create Comic Art Fans, I met through doing an Unreal mod based on Cthulhu. I never finished it, but
Mhm.
we worked on it for about 6 months, and work took over for both of us. I ended up hiring him as a web developer for the company that I was employed with at the time, and then yeah, we eventually made CAF, and he's still probably one of my best friends today. I mean, but those were fun times, because it was like, I imagine, like for you too, when you were even in that first the ninja book, right? You were surrounding yourself with a bunch of creative guys who are all around the same age. You've all gone on to do great things. What a fun time to be experimenting with at that point for you, comics. But I don't know. I think in creative worlds and opportunities like that, whether it's it's fun when a lot of the similar minded people get together, like you said, the D&D group. I mean, I love D&D. I mean, my one artwork I'd love to get one day would just be a spot illustration by Bill Willingham. It could be a dwarf with a battle axe, and I would be in heaven as far as D&D art goes. But it's that same thing. I mean, those are all these games and things. They kind of lend themselves to people who are very creative to begin with, and so you get a lot of creative people together. There's going to be fun ideas that come from that.
It was super cool. When I went down to New Zealand to meet the Weta gang, I was not prepared for what I was going to find. I didn't know what it was going to be like. And I went down there, and it's just like you said, it was a group of people who, for them, it was movies. Richard Taylor, Ben Wooten, uh, Jeremy Bennett. They were all just filmmakers, Peter Jackson, of course. And they
Mhm.
just were geeking out. They're like, hey, look, we're in New Zealand. We have nothing to lose. Let's just make some movies. And it all went from there. And when I met the design team, my friends in the design team, Dan Falconer and Greg Broadmoor, Paul Tobin, the aforementioned Wooten, Stephen Crow, and they were all D&D. They play D&D. When I found out they played D&D, I was like, oh yes, of course you guys play D&D. Of course, you made Lord of the Rings like a massive legend that will never die. Of course you play D&D. They really knew it to the marrow.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I could talk for hours about gaming and
Right?
D&D.
Oh gosh.
Yes, but so with the Red Star, though, I mean, do you have stories to tell still? I mean, do
Oh
you feel?
yes, absolutely. It's it's funny with Red Star, and again, getting back to Malvin's comment, the Red Star was always about this this you know this totalitarian state that had become completely corrupt and had forsaken all of its ideals, and moving in on one of its former vassal states mercilessly and with great extreme violence, and some of its own soldiers rebelling against this totalitarian state and becoming the heroes and the protagonists of the story. And that's
Mm.
exactly what's happening today. Back then it was Chechnya, but now it's happening in Ukraine. And so the Red
Mhm.
Star it's still that story of from my Ukraine was Nagorka, and Makita, one of the pieces that's on sale today, she's the kind of that child soldier archetype that was really one of the more popular characters in the Red Star. She said the least, but she was very action oriented. Her behavior was very clear. You knew exactly what she was all about. She'd lost her family and her loved one to the invasion of the totalitarian state, the lands of the Red Star, and she was an Agorkan resistance fighter, and she was just down to kill. And I love that character. She's definitely a prexy for Isadora Callahan, the lead character of Cthulhu Town.
Mhm.
I love no nonsense characters, and that just know exactly. They don't take anything from anybody. They're not big sweethearts like me. They're just like they go out and they go on. And so Makita and Izzy Callahan are very much. As I'm writing Isadora for Cthulhu Town, I'm like, gosh, she reminds me of Makita so much. But I love it. It's just more. And if I get a chance to go back and write Makita again, I would really love it, because there was so much more to tell. The ending of Red Star is written. It would take another. My friends Jennifer Weberly and Jennifer Prince, Jennifer Quintens. We wrote Sword of Lies, the fourth graphic novel. Two pieces of artwork for sale today are from that fourth graphic novel.
Right.
And The Kiss and Makita. Oh, and Imble. Sorry, three pieces. And that's one of my favorite books. It was wonderful to go down to New Zealand and have it digitally painted. It was wonderful to write it with those that new writing team, and to kind of take everything I learned from the first three books and apply it to this fourth book. And when we were writing the fourth book, we did something that was unprecedented. You know, a lot of the time with Red Star, because of the burden of doing the new art process, the writing suffered. And so I was really just laying the track down in front of the train for so much of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But with the fourth book, the Jennifers were, especially Weberly, came on as editor. She was like, "We got to outline the rest of this series." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that would be, people like, the head, whoa." And so we did. So Red Star is planned out like to the end. This is big glorious ending. So if I just need a kind of medieval patron to come and drop a bunch of money on me, and I can get it done.
You would stick to the same old the same processes, right? I mean, to keep it
and now it'd be
similar in style and scope. I mean,
and now it would be so much easier. And like you said, computers have gotten so much. I mean, my gosh, no file transfer, right? I mean, it's just it's so easy, and it would be amazing. I would definitely delegate a lot of that stuff that I had to do myself. And there's so many assets I can just buy online as opposed to modeling every single model in the library. We had over 1,000 meshes on Red Star.
Mm-hmm.
A big model library. Every one of them was custom. Every one of them was made by my pals in the video game industry.
That's incredible. Alberto says you should do a Kickstarter.
I know, right? Thank you, Alberto.
And Mike Bravanek mentions Jeff D from the TSR side of things. I actually own a few pieces by Jeff D, so I've got that checkbox covered. It's the Bill Willingham stuff I can't find. I have elementals and things like things in his comics career, but nothing from TSR or the gaming world.
I loved Jeff D's stuff, man.
Yeah, exactly. I've only got his Villains and Vigilantes artwork, but still, it's something from gaming. I played a little bit of that. After I did much of my D&D work, but that's awesome. That is awesome. So aside from what other projects have you completed in the last couple of years? Because I know you've been working in animation, and I think that there were a couple Netflix projects that you've recently worked on that
that's right.
Familiar with.
So I'm sure your viewers will know Stephen Platt, the great Stephen Platt, and I met on thanks to Ian McCaig. Ian brought both of us together on a movie. We were working on an animated feature that Ian was directing, and Ian's vision for this movie was gorgeous. It was going to be so great, and we had legends on that team. Craig Elliott.
Oh, wow.
Craig Elliott he's one of my favorite living artists. He was on the team. David Krentz was on the team. Story artist, Emmy-winning story artist from Primal and all the MCU stuff. He was on this show. That's where we met. And another person that I met on this show was Jay Oliva. And Jay is animation legend, went all over the place as a story artist and director. Worked a lot of the DC animated stuff Jay's worked on. Avatar: The Last Airbender he's worked on. I mean, his filmography is crazy. If you Google Jay Oliva, you'll see his credits just go forever. And during the pandemic, I had just gotten into live action directing. In 2019, I did 2 episodes of a show. I directed 2 episodes of a show for the CW, Pandora, sci-fi show, thanks to my good buddy Mark Altman. But then 2020 happens, right? It's the pandemic. So, live action is just stalled.
Right.
And oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Jay called and said, "Hey, I've got a studio together. Zack Snyder is funding the studio. I'm running it. And JoJo's there and Tim, all our pals. And it was this kind of story artist driven studio, and we're doing shows for Netflix. Come on board." So, and Stephen Platt was on there too for a little bit. So I did 3 shows for Netflix with Jay's studio. One is a animated prequel to Army of the Dead, which was really, really exciting to do. And then there Dave Bautista, all the same actors from Army of the Dead are in that animated show. And then Ark Survival, for those of you that know that game, Ark Survival, we did an amazing, epic animated series for that is still being in production. That's actually been announced, so that's coming out. There was a third one, a Norse mythology show that we worked on, and that was most of my pandemic, 20 and 21, was spent doing story art on Storyboard Pro, making animatics for Netflix shows, and that's been wonderful. It's been so great to kind of take what I know from theater and directing television and comics and put it all together into these animatics and make these little scenes. As a story artist, it's incredible. There's a great movie everyone should see called Harold and Lillian. It's about story artists, one of the greatest story artists, one of the original story artists, Harold and Lillian. Great movie, was Oscar nominated. He was an incredible, influential story artist, worked for Hitchcock, worked for the great Mike Nichols. You guys should all check that out. And it's amazing. You get the script and your job is to visualize it. You're the first person in, you're the first line of visualization. You speak to the director about what they want, and then you give it a shot and you show it to them and they like it or they don't like it, and you tweak it and you animate it again and you send it down the line and it becomes a show. But it's such a wonderful, I love being right where the, close to the metal, as they say, where the rubber hits the road, and right there where the words become a picture for the very first time. And so that's been a blast. And then I worked on a great Marvel show with my dear friend Todd Harris, who I met at 24-hour comic book day. I was doing my one 24-hour comic book day I did at Earth 2 in Sherman Oaks. And this young man walks in with his friends, shows me his portfolio, and he was amazing. And I was incredibly encouraging. I gave him some books, and years later, I meet him again, thanks to my buddy Dave Krentz. He's like, "You got to meet my friend. You got to meet Todd. You got to meet Todd. You guys would get along so great." He says this for years before it happened. Finally, we meet, and I'm like, "Hi, Todd. Dave says we get along great." And Todd says, "You don't remember me, do you?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "At Earth 2, you did a portfolio review for me." And I was like, "What? What did I say?" He's like, "You were great. You were great." When you do portfolio reviews, you're always nervous because you're like, "Oh God, what did I say? I hope I was nice."
Right.
But yeah, and ended up working for Todd. Todd is a legend. This is the man who storyboarded most of the John Wick films. All the John Wick movies Todd has worked on.
Wow.
So yeah, that says it all, right? All the MCU movies. Incredibly talented guy. And so I worked for him on his Disney Plus show that is not announced. So it's all I can say about it is that it's a Marvel show for Disney Plus. Worked with the great Zhang Fang, was a series director. Zhang Fang, another legendary animation person who is just the nicest guy in the world. And Chris Bryant ran that show as far as keeping all the storyboards happening, which is so important. When I started directing, my friend Jennifer was a USC Film School graduate, said to me, "Listen, you got to understand that how operations really happen and make entertainment happen." And ever since then, I've had a great appreciation for not just the glory hounds in front of a camera or the ones who get all the credit. There are certain departments that get all the credit, and there are certain departments that don't. And those other departments that we don't hear a lot about, they're incredibly important. Like editors, for example. In comic books, it's the editors, right? Diana Schutz, Chris Simon, Jamie Rich, all these Dan Thorsland, Bob Cooper, all these wonderful, wonderful people out there who are getting the art in on time, dealing with the artist's moods as they swing to and fro, and I have a great appreciation for them, especially having gone from being a callow freelancer at Dark Horse, whatever deadlines, to the guy signing the checks on Red Star, right? It really changes your perspective, gives you appreciation for that role.
Oh yeah, no, editorial. Where would we be without good editors, right? Continuity would be lost, and without their nudging people in certain directions. There'd be many great stories that we wouldn't have today, and for any of the publishers that are out there. No, everybody plays a major role in a project of that scope. But it's funny. I don't think I've seen. I watch Netflix all the time. I'm usually watching documentaries or listening to them. But I loved Army of the Dead. I don't think I saw the animated one, version, the prequel that you did. I'm going to have to go check it out because I don't know how I missed that. Why wasn't it recommended to me? It should be in my recommendation list every time I go to.
It hasn't been released.
That's why it has. Oh, okay. I thought it was. When you were saying it was a prequel, I thought it must have already came out. I'm sitting there thinking, how in the hell did I have missed it?
I wish. I'm so ready for it to come out.
What are they waiting for?
I cannot say. My lips are sealed. I cannot speak on this.
Dude, because those were. I love. I'm a big zombie fan. I love shows like that kind of. Any apocalypse stuff is great, right? And I love those. I watched the first one more than twice, and the last one at least twice, because they were just so well done. I love movies that are that are just, you just sit back and enjoy them like that. You don't have to question if I have friends who just love to diagnose stories. Those are ones you're just sitting back to enjoy it because you love a good ugly zombie flick that's also a heist movie.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
uh, well, shoot. Now, well, at least I have something to look forward to.
yeah. I'll I'll we'll talk later and I'll show you some stuff.
Yes. All right. Thank you. Thank you.
It's
Yes.
fun. I gotta say that the animated prequel we were working on for Army was so fun. It's like, because in animation it really is. It's kind of a lower stakes game, right? Everybody
Mhm.
on the movie itself, high stakes. Everybody's going to come in and judge it and troll it and knock it apart. Animated series, there's more leeway, and luckily we're working with veterans, Jay Oliva and Tim and JoJo, and the team that was working on that show was so they know animation for their entire career, like all the way back to real Ghostbusters. I mean, these are veterans, so they know
Mhm.
how animation works. They know how to make it great, and they know and also they've kind of unleashed, right, to do it the way they want to do it, and it's good fun. I hope it comes out.
Well, I do too. Um, so, next 5 years projects, do you have those all lined up, or do you just kind of take one project at a time? I mean, how do you, how,
It's
I mean,
fantastic.
someone in your position, I mean, it seems like you could do almost anything that you'd want. But as far as like these opportunities are out there because there's always creative projects going on, and you seem pretty well connected with people in gaming and film and comics. Yeah, I mean, do you ever have like a 5 year plan in front of you, or?
Right now, I'm having a great time at Nickelodeon on Transformers: Earthspark. I'm
Mhm.
on that show. Just got on that show. Really enjoying it. And Great team over there. It's really fun. I've worked on some serious grown-up stuff, so it's super fun to be working on a kids show. I'm a dad, and I appreciate family stuff, all ages stuff, and it's a really really fun show with some great messages in there, and it's fun to draw Transformers. I've never drawn a Transformer before, so it's so fun to like draw them. When we do the animatics, we have to the storyboarding is part of that. You show them kind of going from vehicle to robot or robot to vehicle, and I didn't
Mhm.
realize how much fun that would be. So I'm on that. I'll be on that for some time, and that's a union gig, which is awesome. I don't have to do a million gigs. I can do that one gig. And But I'm really looking forward, as far as the next like 3 to 5. I'm really looking forward to diving into Cthulhu Town.
Yeah.
It's the 1920s, which I love. It's the Cthulhu mythos, which is amazing and just limitless. And it's therefore Dungeons and Dragons as well, right? I didn't know who Lovecraft was until I was playing D&D,
Mhm.
of course, and so it's like got all this wonderful stuff. Who done it all comes together, and since it's the 20s, I was able to take these stories of my family from New York, my dad's family who grew up in the tenements in New York, and I can like get them in there, and I'm making it very personal in that way, and it's just a blast. I'm having so much fun with it. Um, so that's really what I hope to be able to kind of focus on, that and more animation shows. I love working animation, and I miss live action directing, frankly. Going out to Bulgaria to do those 2 episodes for the CW and some second unit directing was a blast. I love working with actors. As I said, my dad was an actor, so I really enjoy working with them. And I did a lot of theater, so that's kind of wonderful to be out there with people doing stuff. So I'll get back to that at some point. But right now,
Mhm.
um, being a story artist is super fun, and Cthulhu Town just has me, like Red Star had me. Red Star had me. I loved taking Star Wars and Russian military history and making it a thing. And now it's the same thing. I'm taking, the 1920s and Hollywood, the silent film era, which I'm a huge movie buff, and silent films is in particular, and taking the silent Hollywood era and Cthulhu and putting it together is just has me crazy.
Sounds like something Guillermo del Toro might be interested in.
That would be
As
awesome.
far as the story,
That would be fantastic.
kind of fits in his wheelhouse. But I can't imagine. I mean, I'm looking forward to whatever you're going to show me after the show's over.
Right on. Yeah, I'd love to hear what you think.
Yeah, no, but that's exciting, man. I mean, creator-owned projects, especially ones that you can really publish essentially on your own as a webcomic. I mean, that's got to be, it's very liberating. I mean, are you working with anybody to kind of like, uh, you know, kind of edit or review, give you a little
Yes, that
creative
was
input?
one of the great lessons I learned from Red Star was have that second pair of eyes. And it's been
Yeah.
my friend Kristen Kerner Simon has been the editor from the beginning. It started out as a 3-page story in Russell Nolte's Cthulhu is Hard to Spell anthology. The 6 pages I'll show you are in that anthology.
Okay.
And so I did those 3 pages and under Chris's editing, and I thought, gosh, should I make a run? I enjoyed this so much. I was like, should I build this out? And yeah, so now I'm in. And
That's
yeah, it's been
awesome.
great. It's been great. It's been so much more organized than Red Star. I mean, it's there's stuff on the wall at my house. There's like this big schedule on the wall, production schedule. Again, unprecedented for me. Levels of organization, thanks to having an editor on board. At Chris's place, it's all over the wall. It's like, all the story stuff. It's like a beautiful mind. It's like we haven't put any yarn needles up yet, but probably,
But
probably
it's bound to happen soon, right?
bound to happen. It's bound to happen.
Well, as the story gets more in depth, I mean, you probably almost have to, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a post-it note guy. If you could see my desk, I could be drawing or pulling yarn between them to remind me, that this one's related to that project. But if I don't do it, I don't get things done. I mean, you have to,
Yeah.
when you're juggling a project of any magnitude, yeah. I wish I had. Well, I do have a job board. It's actually, yeah. When we film stuff for that one show where we do a lot of memes, I have a job board that we kind of check our stuff off of and make sure, because my daughters both help me on some of the production of that. My son does video editing too. So
Awesome.
yeah, it's cool. And yeah, you did say your father. You have a daughter who's 15, and it's cool. She could become an artist or something else. But we were talking earlier. You mentioned those people who have to kind of oversee things. I mean, the legal aspect to a lot of these projects probably slows the creative process down a little bit. But going back to the Cthulhu project now, that's where you don't have to know. There's no lawyers involved. You're straight on doing whatever you like and having no oversight effectively.
Yeah, so far so good. At some point, hopefully, at some point it will be, it will get courted by a
Mhm.
company, and I'll make a deal with them, and for distribution's sake. And I've been searching out a lot of info, and I'd recommend that to any creators out there, anybody that's interested in kind of taking something they love and doing it. One of the things I'll say is go out and talk. Yeah, find out about the deals that will be offered to you. Find out about them. There was a great interview with Neil Gaiman, and he talked about how he signed over Sandman. He knew, he's like, look, I really want to do this. I can do it independently, or I can give it away to this major conglomerate, and they'll take advantage of me. But you know what? I want a big audience, and so I'll sign it over to DC. And he did it. And then that story changes later on because of the great Paul Levitz, and so there's conversations that happen later on once it's a hit. But
Mhm.
yeah, if you want a big audience, at some point you got to play that game. Jim Cameron doesn't own Avatar or Terminator. Your favorite creators don't own their stuff. They have to make deals with these big organizations in order to get that big audience. So it's a game to play. So right now, though, yes, it's a blast. It's mine. It's all mine. I can just be crazy with it and do it on Webtoon, and that's going to be. I'm really, really excited about the story so far, and yeah, but it would be fun. I got to say, it would be fun to have unlike Red Star, which was totally me. With Cthulhu Town, it's built for other people. I would love to be one story of Cthulhu Town
Mhm.
and establish it in such a way that you immediately realize, oh my gosh, there are so many stories that could be told about that era, that kind of that Cthulhu Town place. There's so many different ways you could take it. So I would love for that to be one of many stories in that franchise.
I like that idea. It's kind of well, I'm not going to compare it to anything, but I love the idea that it can become like an anthology that other people can kind of take their spin. Characters can cross storylines, and that just makes the world more believable.
Exactly, and it's a lot of fun. I'm more of an adventure guy than a horror person. There's
Mhm.
definitely scary elements in there, and I'm that's another fun thing about Cthulhu is I've never done horror before, so it's definitely in there. There's some freaky moments in it. It has to be. It's Lovecraft, right?
Right.
But Lovecraft pastiche, if you will. But there's also fun. Like Ghostbusters is one of my favorite Lovecraft movies, right? It's one of my favorite Cthulhu movies is Ghostbusters, and it
Mhm.
absolutely is interdimensional aliens, possession, crazy apartments. It's non-Euclidean geometry. It's all there. So we're kind of taking that 30s pulp, 20s pulp take.
Well, I can't wait to see it. I
Yeah.
mean, so So hey, we've been going at this a little bit. Do you want to kind of move into the art sale portion of things, so we
Let's
could,
do it.
there's plenty of stuff to talk about when we're looking at the artwork.
For sure.
Awesome. All right. Well, let me go ahead and remind everybody how we're going to do this, just so we're all on top of things. Claims won't happen in the chat today because we're working with Third Eye, the wonderful people over there. They're going to you're going to be emailing your claims in today. So I'll just pull that slide up again. You're going to send Nicole at Third Eye Comics an email letting her know which artwork you'd like to pick up. The 18 artworks that we're going to be looking at today all are numbered, so they're lots 1 through 18. When you email Nicole, just have the art sale in the subject and Christian's name, please. And also, put the lot number in your name in the body. And the first person to get an email to her is the person who gets to claim the artwork. And Nicole will reply to that person immediately, letting them know that they got it. And just shipping will be handled by Third Eye as always. And shipping is a little additional to the overall sale price, $20 domestic, $50 international. You can combine on shipping if you win multiple lots today. And I can tell you that Third Eye does a fantastic job packing artwork. They're I've seen some of their work, and it's top notch. I couldn't do it any better. So they're very experts at that side of things. So let's kind of move into it now. Just so everybody knows, we're actually going to start with some of the Red Star artwork. I think we have I think it was 5 pieces that we're going to look at today, and and I'm not going by, and I know I talked about this last week. We did a show with Klaus Jansen, and I'm like, I didn't follow any, whether it was by era or by age or by price. We do lots of different things, but today at least I grouped topics together. So I've got the Red Star artwork up first, and then we'll kind of go into a few other areas. But so just to kind of get things started. Now, as a reminder, the Red Star artwork is a published book. Had a lot of different tools used in it. There was computer animation with the meshes for the models, and then the rendering and the digital painting. But key to underneath all of that was penciled artwork that Christian was producing. I mean, a lot, right? I mean,
every figure was drawn. Every character was hand drawn by me.
That's so it's a lot of work. And so when you see these pieces, that you have to kind of imagine that they were from a panel, or they're part of a cover, or the main character in a cover. So but we'll talk about each piece when we look at them, and give you the scoop on each. I did the only one piece I didn't have the printed version. But here, we'll take a look at lot 1 and just roll into things here. This is the first lot. It's priced $375. And you were talking about this character earlier, and you can see in this piece, it was used as a panel from the book, and a gorgeous illustration. And then as the final image, it's kind of small there on the left, but that was how it came up in print. So, I mean, when you were doing the pencil pieces, Christian, I mean, did you really kind of have a clear vision of how these would look when they were digitally painted?
Absolutely. Everything gets laid out first, meticulously, and then some drawings. I was always in love with this character, the child soldier, and lost everyone in the war when her country was invaded, and is fighting tooth and nail to take her vengeance against the lands of the Red Star in their name. And her father was a veteran of the wars, and she wears his hat, and it's too big for her, and she wears his boots, and they're too big for her, and she's just this brave child alone in this hellfire. And I just always loved her unstoppableness. And so, yes, this is Makita in this incredible moment of fighting in the third trade paperback, Prison of Souls. And yes, we lay every drawing out, and that's one of the ways we were able to integrate CG imagery as our backgrounds. We made all the ships, we made all the tanks, we made most of the backgrounds in 3D in CG programs, and then from the layouts, I would talk to the modelers, and I'd be, okay, here's this background we need, here's this ship we need, here's the angle, here's the render. And the renders were done first, and then I would draw in perspective to those renders. And that was one of the keys aesthetically to making it all integrate and composite so nicely, was that from the very beginning, the images were designed to work together.
Well, I can let you know that this piece has been claimed.
Oh,
and one of the things that I did forget, I meant to ask you before the show started, because I knew it wasn't in our notes, was the size on these pieces. A couple, Mike Pravanik said he was assuming maybe 8.5 by 11, and Alberto was curious as well. for this particular piece, was it 8.5 by 11 or thereabouts?
Yeah, about that size. Yeah.
Okay. If any of the pieces, the other 4 pieces that we're going to look at, if kind of help me out when we look at them, if you can mention the size, because I know that was on my to-do list and I did forget, because that doesn't appear on these. So, but congrats to the winner on this one. I can tell you, if it didn't get bought, I was going to buy it because I thought it was gorgeous. So I was sitting there thinking, well, it might fall through the cracks, and I'll pick that one up. But
thank you, and thank you, Mike, and thank you, Mr. Easy Go Lucky.
Exactly. So, so congrats to whomever picked that one up. But so lot 1 was claimed, and it's a beauty. So let's go take a look at this next piece. And this is a cover image. You can see in the upper left. That's how it was published. I mean, was that element in the foreground, was that drawn as well, or was that a digital element?
I'm glad you asked. All the ships are CG. That is a CG rendering, and she was composited right into it. It's a photographic sky behind her and CG ships all around her. So great image. This was a cover image of the goddess of truth.
Size on this one too, about in that 8.5.
Is large.
Okay.
This one is about I'd say probably 15, but maybe 10 inches, 12 inches, I think.
Oh, on the vertical. So like maybe
on the vertical,
8 by 12, 9 by 12, somewhere around there. Okay.
Yeah, maybe 11 by 14.
Okay. Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. That's a beauty. I love this character. She, we called her the Red Woman or the Goddess of Truth. She was this ghost, and she was betrayed by the revolutionaries. She helped the revolutionaries overtake their country in the name of these wonderful humanistic ideals, and then they quickly, once they had power, betrayed her. And so for 100 years, she was a prisoner of their betrayal, and she escapes thanks to our heroes. And so she emerges and helps them defeat those who betrayed her.
Wow, it's gorgeous, and it is claimed as well. I was just going to I hate to interrupt, so I was typing it in. I was about to type in the chat, but yes, this one's claimed. Wow. Whoever picked this one up, it's a fantastic piece, and I have to let everybody know too. When Christian kind of came to me to work on this project, there's really not a lot of Christian's art out there. So I hope everybody that's picking up art tonight does end up posting it to CAF, because, we want to see more of it, because there is a lot. For a book like Red Star, with all of these pieces being separate illustrations for the covers, and even some of the characters on the covers to all the panels, there's a lot of work that went into this project. And the fact that there isn't more of your work from Red Star out there is tragic, because I was surprised when I saw this work. I was like, wow, there just isn't enough. So, I was really, I felt that this was a great opportunity for people to see part of the process that went into the books as well.
Thanks, Bill.
So congrats to the winner on that one. We'll take a look at lot 3 now. And this one's priced at $500 as well. This was part of kind of a DPS title page early in the Red Star Mage #2 book, or Red Star 2 book. So you tell me about this one, because again, fantastic illustration, and the size on this one too.
This one is large. This is about 14 on the vertical.
Okay.
I was drawing very big back then, and because I wanted the detail to work. This is issue 2. It's very early in the Red Star process. A lot of experimentation going on. Beautifully digitally painted by Byron Tallman. And these are the Nastani. These are the warriors who are unlike the heroes of the Red Star, who imprison the spirits of their ancestors in order to wage war. This culture they seek the approval of their ancestors to go to war. And so their culture kind of embodies that. The Red Star is all about magic and how you use it. Do you abuse the magic? Do you enslave it? Do you use it for the wrong purpose? Or do you realize, do you use right action? Is it a metaphor for doing the right thing? And this culture is defending their homeland. So they're doing the right thing. And this is Kardathra. This is the spiritual leader of their nation. Drawn in large size. He's holding this book that is the source of his power, and as you can see behind him, this is one of several pieces that goes into this piece. So there's Kardathra I drew separately, and then there were the 2 warriors in front of him, which are also drawn separately, and then there's all those warriors in the back of him. as again, this is after my work at Activision. So I was very, very excited about the idea of digital and visual compositing. And this is one such composite. And also in the process, I wanted to give Byron, my first visual collaborator in the process, I wanted to give him the opportunity to find the piece. So I could have drawn this in one, but it was more fun for me to collaborate and have him invest in finding this composition together. And it's one of the great, for me, it was one of the great aspects of working on the book, was Byron and I sitting together in his apartment and putting these things together. And that's why they were drawn separately. I always knew I wanted to draw them separately, and he agreed to do it. You know, a lot of colorists would have said, no way, that's crazy. I don't want to scan these gigantic pieces of art, sometimes in several pieces, and then put them together. And he was a little reluctant at first, but I said, look, trust me, man, if this doesn't work out, we'll find another way to do it. But I thought, let's try this. And we did this. We did a first piece. And this is one of the first pieces, and it worked out, and we were off and running from there.
Well, that's incredible. And I kind of figured that all the figures in the background were all separate, but that it kind of goes back to what I was mentioning earlier. There's a lot of artworks of yours that are out there that I think people need to get, onto CAF. So this piece is still available. So lot 3 is still out there. I always kind of recap what doesn't sell at the end, just to make sure everybody's aware. And for the many people who will watch this show afterwards, I always encourage you, if you see a piece of art that doesn't sell during the show, we'll give you you want to reach out to Nicole afterwards, because throughout the weekend and into, let's say, Monday, you can email Nicole and find out if a piece is still available. And if so, we can work out you claiming these pieces after the show if they don't claim during the show. Now, with this fourth piece, I don't know why, either I screwed it up or I missed finding the published image for this, but this is this is a full page. It's from issue 2 as well, page 100. I even noted that now I assume this is on 11 by 17 because it looks like standard board.
This is standard board.
Yeah, this one's priced $2,500, and this was a piece that you had mentioned that actually got you into the Spectrum publication.
Yes. Yeah, this got into Spectrum. This is painted by my friend, the great Stephen Crow. Stephen Crow is currently one of the art directors on Avatar and Avatar 2. So pretty talented guy. Really, really happy to know him and work with him. And he did a beautiful job painting this. I've got, Bill, should I try and show it to the camera? I've got the book here.
Yeah, sure. That'd be great. I'll pull the slide away and then I can make you go full screen here.
So here it is. I know. Sorry, I apologize but look at that gorgeous. Let's see. Come on, camera, work with me. See if I can get this in a way that works.
Yeah, it's never fun.
This is comedic.
There you go.
There we go. A little bit of comedy.
Perfect.
Beautiful painting. Marcus and Maya are Antares, the heroes of the Red Star, having a moment, a little intimate moment. There's so much violence in Red Star. I wanted to make sure there was some romance in there as well. And that's the great Stephen Crow down in Wellington, New Zealand, painted in 2006 for that book. This was in Spectrum. It's one of my favorites from the series, and it's one of the few Red Star pieces that was done on standard board. By the fourth book, we were wheeling and dealing. On the process, and I realized, hey, there are some times on a scene with close-ups where we don't have to go through the laborious process of drawing it all separately. I can actually kind of compose a page as a page, and this is it.
Well, it's absolutely stunning, and it has been claimed. So congrats to the person who got this one.
Wow.
It's absolutely gorgeous. And I do apologize for not having the published image to show with it, but and forcing Christian to have to go through that mirror thing.
I'll do comedy. Any comedy you want, I'll do. You want to send him ahead.
Oh boy. But yeah, it really is gorgeous. And I get to see all the high res scans on these when they came into, and it is a
thank you.
Wonderful piece of
art. It means a lot coming from you, Bill. You see the best stuff, best of the best.
Yeah, but again, that's what I felt, this opportunity was so unique, especially with these pieces, just because I know a lot of people haven't seen this work before. And the fifth piece that we're going to show, the final one from the Red Star pieces, is definitely a piece near and dear to you as well. And let's go ahead and pull up lot 5. This is the trade paperback cover, Sword of Lies. This one's priced at $5,000, but I mean, again, if I could pull up the high res, you would see just, it's wonderfully detailed. It's really well rendered. I mean, the cover on this book was gorgeous too, but can you tell us a little bit about the thought process going in to make such an impactful image?
Thank you. This is one of my favorite pieces from the entire series. It is Imbol. That is Imbol. He's the main antagonist. He was an idealist, a young revolutionary who believed in the ideals that he was fighting for, and he became the ultimate betrayer, and sentenced his people to labor camps, and destroyed millions of lives in order to fuel the magic that he would use to attempt to conquer the world. So he's this wonderful, wonderful character. Is a really sweet, wonderful. In this book, we see his journey from a really sweet young idealist, where he meets the goddess of truth, falls in love with her, and enlists her as his ally. And then they win the war, this impossible feat, this impossible victory, this revolution. And then he betrays her from fear and insecurity. And I drew the heck out of this one. It's a large piece, standard size board. And it painted beautifully by my dear friend Paul Tobin, another veteran of the Weta Workshop down in New Zealand. Again, if you love a movie in the last 20 years from Weta Workshop, he worked on it, and he did a beautiful job on this. And I just cherish it. And it's never been offered before. And if you see it, you'll see the weapons are invented. Those are not actual shooting irons. I invented those for the Lands of the Red Star. I try to invent as much technology as possible in the Red Star, so it's recognizable, but at the same time different, kind of bulkier and meatier, to show that the difference between our world and theirs. Thank you, Mr. Easy Go Lucky. I really do really love this piece.
Now, do you typically work in, yeah, this is like a blue pencil? And we've seen that on some of the other pieces too.
This is Color Ace Blue. Color Ace Blue is a legendary company. They were an independent pencil company for a long time, and Prismacolor eventually bought them. Much beloved by animators. They're still, if you can buy original pre-Prismacolor Color Ace Blue, then they're like a holy grail for those of us that love the original Color Ace Blue. Prismacolor's done a good job of keeping them alive, but there's some of us who, we're ornery old dudes, and we like ornery old artists, and we like our classics. But yeah, this is Color Ace Blue. Another wonderful part about Red Star was it was the kind of right there, one of the pioneers of digital inking. And I love an ink look. I'm a big fan of those who know how to wield India ink. I'm not one of them. And so I like to let the stuff happen in pencil. And so that's where it is. I kind of hand it over to the painter and let them do it. And that's what this is.
Well, it is a fantastic piece, and it is still available to anyone. We'll come back to it. And I should always remind everybody as well, I always keep a tab, you should keep pad and pencil in hand so that you're noting pieces that you like, because you can claim anything at any time. So when we get to the 18th, which is the last piece that we'll be showing today, before we recap stuff, if there's something you saw that you wanted that was shown earlier, shoot Nicole the email. You can claim pieces at any time throughout the show. So now we're going to move into a completely different area. I mean, these are we've got two pieces from D&D, and I have no idea how they came about. So like I said, I kind of avoided talking about that earlier.
Right. It's time for a little more comedy. If you want to give me the camera, it's time for a little more comedy.
Oh, sure. Let me switch over to you. Yep. Okay.
Okay. So Team Red Star, as I mentioned, we were a D&D group that decided to do Red Star. And so while we were doing it, the great Ryan Dancy opened up the creation of Dungeons and Dragons. And so with the OGL and D20 in the 3rd edition. So we decided, heck, we've done all this serious Red Star Russian drama stuff. Let's do some D&D characters. And there was no, at the time, there were no NPC books. So these next two pieces are from our book, Dramatis Personae. My team wanted to call it Friends and Foes because it's a book of NPCs, and I should have done Friends and Foes, but I was feeling pretty Shakespearean at the time. I decided to go with Dramatis Personae. Probably any marketing person would be like, Dramatis Personae, who wants to talk Latin? But yeah, so they're from it's a collection of NPCs, and these are two of the NPCs available in that book.
Got it. All right, and I'll go ahead and show. This is lot 6, so it's an illustration of a thief done for that book. It's just priced at $100. Was this one digitally painted as well, or did you leave it as is?
Left it as is, printed grayscale in the book. We're trying to be very, very, prudent as far as it was kind of a test market thing. We had never done a D&D book before, so we want to see how it did, and we did pretty well. But yeah, we decided we were going to, for once, I was so extravagant on Red Star, right? I had CG modeling, I had high paid digital painters. I had Richard Starkings doing the lettering. That was our big budget show. And so our D&D book was going to be a nice, inexpensive way to go. And I gave her the nice soft shoes, hoping that the rogues will be like, hey, a thief with the soft shoes. I like it. I like the detail.
No, well, that's. I was hoping you were going to tell me that these were, that it was printed that way, because I mean that's part of what I always enjoyed about the monster manuals, or anything that was coming out of it. A lot of times they left the ink washing kind of rough or something. I mean, and that was kind of what made those books fun. It almost felt like you could have made your own, which of course that was sort of the whole point behind doing the Dungeons and Dragons. And so I always appreciated that. I mean, the old what were they, like the character sheets that you put together, you always got to draw your own character if you wanted, or if you were a good artist, you drew them for your friends too.
That's right.
So I mean, that was always such a fun. See, I'm reliving my childhood now. I haven't thought about D&D and what, because so I see that, and I'm glad that it was left like that in the book.
Right on.
And
And
it was.
you're so right. So much of the appeal for D&D when we were kids, the Orange Spine books and all those early modules, you're like, it felt so accessible and so relatable.
Absolutely, and congrats to whoever picked that up. We've got a D&D fan, at least one of out there. I'm sure many more, considering you and I are both fans. So here's the other D&D artwork here, and price the same. And this is Malador.
Malador, evil cleric. Cleric.
Now, size on this one?
This is about 8.5 by 11.
Okay. And this one has it's not all blue pencil on this one. You got a little.
Yeah, there's blue pencil, and then there's graphite over that. So I roughed in blue and finished in graphite. And he's got a gem in his forehead, and it's an evil gem that that he is totally into having. And he's got another evil gem in his belt, and he's got scale mail, and he's very spiky, and a chainmail cowl, and he looks like we're getting ready to unleash his zombies on a coastal town and do bad stuff.
No, well, awesome perspective on it. I mean, that's really, really cool. And again, I think that, seeing that, I think it's awesome that it was printed in the same manner. I mean, I love that.
Yeah, and he's got all his stats. Well, not with him, but if you got Dramatis Personae, we had all the stats. Because I loved Rogues Gallery when I was a kid. Do you remember Rogues Gallery?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Book of NPCs. So that's what we did. And you can't do a book of NPCs without at least one evil cleric.
Exactly. And Lot 7 has been claimed as well.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
That is fantastic. Yes. Thank you, everyone, for picking up pieces so far. So that's great. And again, put them on CAF. I mean, share it, and it'll make us all happy. So now we're going into a piece. These two pieces, I got them late in the process. So I assume these might have been drawn just recently.
Yes.
And I'm not even sure. I'm going to double check on the slide before I show it, because I remember the one piece. I'm sure I actually put the size on it now, but I'm going to double check my slide before actually showing it to everybody. But I assume this is back to you're not doodling on napkins here, but these were just something fun to do. I know that you do work with Jim McLaughlin for Hero. I mean, you do things that they auction off for the Hero Initiative as well.
Absolutely. Every chance I get, I do stuff for Hero Initiative.
That's great. Jeffrey Moy is in the chat tonight, and I know he regularly has pieces that are auctioned off as well. So I think it's just great that so many creators give back their time to Hero. So yeah, that's wonderful. Okay, and yes, I did put the size on it. I just wanted to make sure before I showed the first one, or I'd have to be digging through my email for it. So here, we'll just go ahead and show it. So this is something you did recently. This is done on 6.5 by 10.5 piece of paper. Yeah. It's $100. It's a Joker sketch. Again, just for fun, something to do.
Yeah, just always working on the stuff. I'm always doing kind of original stuff, and it's fun for Hero Initiative. I always want to make sure that it makes as much as possible for the charity. So when that's where a lot of the time I'll draw the main characters. I've done Wonder Woman for Hero Initiative, Batman, Carrie Kelly, one of my favorite Robin, Carrie Kelly, and the occasional Joker, Dr. Doom. I always try to do that kind of stuff. So I figured, I should. For the sake of the auction, I see if I could throw one up for this, for the sake of the sale.
Sure. No, I think it's always good. I mean, I would assume if I had time, I'd be doodling all the time as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, this looks fun. So this is a little bit of, is that ink, or is that just a darker pencil? No, it's pencil, isn't it?
Actually, yeah, this is inked actually. So this is blue pencil and then ink over top of that.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, because I'm looking at it, I can see that it's a little translucent. So I thought maybe that was just a heavy pencil, but no, ink makes sense. Yeah. And it has been claimed, by the way.
Great. Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. I was just about to type that, but and I saw Alberto picked up lots 6 and 7. So congrats, Alberto.
Thanks,
I,
Alberta.
I didn't. Alberto, are you a fan of D&D? You'll have to let us know. But thank you for picking both of those pieces up. I appreciate it. And Jeffrey said, "Yep, great to have you on here, Christian.
Thank you,
One
Jeff.
day I'd like to have Jeff on sometime too. I was thinking about that. I got to meet him at Baltimore Comic Con at the end of last year, and he's got an incredible art collection. And Jeff, I'd be happy just to talk about that, not sell any of your artwork, just talk about your artwork. Would be fun as a collector. But Jeff's a really nice guy, and he's been very supportive of everything we've been doing here on the live streams. I mean, it's always nice to have a creator in the mix
No
to
doubt.
give their perspective.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Jeffrey.
Oh, and there you go. Alberto said, my son started delving into D&D the last couple of years, so this is for him. That's awesome. I buy art for my kids all the time. As everybody knows, my daughter Gwen has at least 20 pieces in her collection. Half of them I got her, and half she's picked up just from seeing stuff that I have shown on the shows or whatnot. And Jeff says he'll do a show. Awesome. Wine and dine you. I don't know about that. Maybe at the next show we get to see each other. All right, so this next piece is in the same vein as the last one, but this is actually on a sketch cover. It's a Joker piece done on a sketch cover from the Joker, the Man Who Stopped Laughing. And, a very fun piece. Wasn't something I was expecting to get, but I'm awesome that I think it's awesome we can offer it today.
Yeah, I thought, what does the Joker do when he's, there must be times when he's concocting plans and he's just mocking Batman. And I don't know if that mask is just a figment of his imagination or if he actually had somebody make him a mask. But there it is. And the 2 tears are, of course, for Martha and Thomas Wayne. Not that he could possibly know that, but I feel like the Joker kind of knows Bruce Wayne is Batman, but can't admit it.
Well, that's awesome. I mean,
there's a little Harley Quinn cufflink. She gave him a pair of cufflinks for his birthday.
I didn't see that at first, even when I blew it up, but there it is. Well, I like, with these pieces and this one in particular, I love the club and the diamond, the Joker in the background. I mean, I just think it's a nice little touch. I love because it kind of harkens to the really light but detailed work that you did on those Red Star pieces. It's just fun. I mean, you're really trying to make this a complete piece, and this is just very nicely done.
Thank you.
And I haven't got a claim yet, as far as I can see. So, but we can, this is lot 9, priced at $125, and whoever picks this one up will definitely get it nicely bagged and boarded and packed and shipped nicely to you if you pick it up today. So now we're shifting gears again. I've got 4 pieces from some of your Star Wars work in the lots 10 through 13. So let's just jump right into it. And so these are all, one of them is a DPS. I think that's lot 11. Yeah, lot 11, but they're all on 11 by 17, correct?
Yes.
All right. So we'll take a look at lot 10 here. First up, tell me a bit about this one. This is priced $500 for those who know.
This is from Kevin J. Anderson fans. If you're a fan of Kevin J. Anderson's writing, this is a page of his writing. One of my favorite collaborations that we did together. The last work, almost the last work we did together, Tales of the Jedi Redemption. And that's Nomi Sunrider, the daughter of Vima Sunrider. And that's Ulic Qel-Droma, my favorite Jedi from the Old Republic. And this is her making her first lightsaber. That is her using the at the time we called them Adagan crystals. Now they're of course Kyber crystals, but this is way back in the day. So she's making her first lightsaber, and this is that piece.
Very nicely done. Now, how long into your career working on Star Wars, was this piece done?
It was wonderful because on Tales of the Jedi, I did issues 1 and 2, the very first issues of Tales of the Jedi I did. And then I also did, and in those issues, I introduced Ulic Qel-Droma. He was the kind of the young hero. And he goes from being, again, a young idealistic hero to he betrays the Jedi and becomes a Dark Lord of the Sith. And this is when he redeems himself. Having been a Dark Lord of the Sith, all he wants to do is he doesn't want anyone, he's ashamed of himself. He feels like he's beyond redemption. And this young Jedi seeks him out to be trained, and he reluctantly does so. And it's a wonderful story. I had a great time working on it with Kevin. And this is a page from that series. And yeah, this is the last Tales of the Jedi series that I did before I went on to do Red Star and a bunch of game work.
All right. Well, I love it. I love the storytelling on this one, and I definitely loved the expression on her face. That's why I wanted to focus on that and the detail part of there. So so this one is still available, lot 10 at $500. Now the next piece is a DPS. So let me highlight that one. You can see the main image, or for the DPS, is above the art description. So lot 11, priced at $1,100. This is pages 6 and 7 from the same book, I believe. And so you tell us a bit about this one. I really like the there seemed to be a lot of detail in this, a little different from the other piece as far as the approach to the inking.
This is really unique because I was finally able. I finally worked up the courage to ink my own stuff on the early issues of Tales of the Jedi Redemption, and so this is me inking one of the first pages I ever inked in comics, and I had no idea what I was doing. I just went for it, and so it's very, very different, very cross-hatchy, very, very light line, and kind of me learning how to ink. And this is Ulick. This is a first shot of Ulick as we've seen him as the young Jedi. We've seen him as the Dark Lord of the Sith, and here he is in his later years, just trying to escape from anyone's notoriety. He's killed his own brother. He just feel like his life is just ruined, and so he's looking for a place to die. And he's hired a smuggler, kind of a real edgy, fringed personality, to kind of fly him around and look for a remote place. And they are right now on Yavin. They're on Yavin, like prehistoric Yavin, long before it will be the rebel base from which the rebels will blow up the Death Star. And this is prehistoric Yavin, and that's Ulick, and that's that character, and that design there's a ship design to the upper left that is one of my you can see the Red Star's influence. I was thinking about doing Red Star when I was doing Tales of the Jedi Redemption. I was pitching it around. I originally hoped the Red Star to be a Dark Horse book, and because I had a background with them, I knew Mike well, and of course I adore Diana Schutz, and I was going to work with Diana on it. And so this is from those days, and you can see that in that truss work, you can see that very Soviet-looking truss, cosmonaut-looking ship to the upper left. So that's the influence of Red Star coming in.
So on this one, were you using both pens and brush for the inking?
Yes, yeah, pens and brush.
Okay.
Pens and brush over pencils. I had not discovered color-based blue yet, so it's graphite underneath.
Got it. Well, it's a gorgeous piece, and I should let everybody know that lot 9, the sketch cover, has been claimed.
Fantastic. Thank you, claimer of lot 9.
All right, so this one's still available, and I'll go over it, and we'll see it again in the recap before we end the show. But we've got 2 more Star Wars pieces to look at here, and this is lot 12, priced at $500. The inking on this one's pretty nice as well. Tell me a bit about this one.
This I decided I was going to try brush. So this is all brush inked, mainly, almost exclusively brush inked. There may be a few pen moments in the rocks, but mainly brush. and early Dark. This is Dark Lords of the Sith. That angry Jedi in the tall panel is Exar Kun, who is the first wielder of the double-bladed lightsaber. I invented the double-bladed lightsaber for him to use, and this is him when he's going bad. He's convinced that he can use the Sith power to be the greatest Jedi ever, foolishly thinking that he can make these pacts with this vile Sith spirit who you can see in the lower right in ghostly form, leading him on, corrupting this Jedi. This is literally a visualization of the corruption of a Jedi. And he's heading into an old Sith cave looking for this ancient Sith artifacts to become a powerful Jedi, when in fact it turns him, and he's trapped and he becomes one of the Dark Lords of the Sith.
Well, it's a gorgeous page. I mean, I love the inking. I love the whole panel layout on it. I mean, I think it's really well thought out, and just knowing that this was an issue where you were really going after straight brush inking. I think that kind of shows here too. That the line work is a little bit heavier, but it has a very chiseled feel. I like your approach to it. It really is nice.
Thank you.
So lot 12 is still available, and we've got one more Star Wars piece to look at here.
Mr.
And
Easy Go Lucky has a question. I believe
oh, I'm sorry.
I believe those are pay stubs. Just to answer your question, I believe they are pay stubs on there.
I could swing it back just to look at it one more time.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure those are pasted up. Might be both.
Yeah.
Might be both.
Okay. Thank you for the question, Mr. Easy Go Lucky. Let's see.
And yes, Mike, I am a big on lore. When they gave me the Star Wars Galaxy and said it's all you, I dove in like crazy. And so thank you for acknowledging that. I love to. I didn't want to just do Star Wars, a space story that was only Star Wars because it said Star Wars on the cover. I really wanted every moment in the stories to seem like authentic Star Wars stuff, and I'm still about that. Which is another thing that I loved about my friends in New Zealand. That the reason why the Lord of the Rings movies are so great, the reason why the Avatar movies are so great, is that Weta has that kind of philosophy about their creativity is from the inside out. Make sure you know the guts of a story and really try to make it as much as authentic and full as you possibly can.
Yeah, no, that's it shows. It really does. Let's see, one more Star Wars piece here. This is lot 13, priced at $400, and this is the part of that Nomi Sunrider storyline. And again, I love that the way you rendered the her in that lower right hand panel. It's just gorgeous, and heavy blacks. I mean, again, a really well laid out page. The framing of the archway there in the third panel. I mean, it all just it's a gorgeous illustration.
Thank you. I love Star Wars environments. I would love to do Star Wars again in some capacity, just because of the environments. They're so fun. I really loved Andor for that, and even Galaxy's Edge in Disneyland. It's wonderful to walk through that kind of Star Warsy medieval Japan meets kind of retro future look. And the first panel, there's a huge Jedi assembly hall that she's walking toward. She's so sad right now because she's lost Ulick. Nomi knew Ulick when he was good, and now she's after him, that he's evil, and she's trying to find him and save him from this path that he's taken.
Well, it's great, and it was claimed really quickly. So congrats to whomever picked that one up. But I've been to Disney World, so I've seen the Star Wars land there, and it's fantastic. I mean, that first panel, that's what it feels like. I mean, for those of you who haven't gotten to experience that, if you're a Star Wars fan, you got to get out to the parks because it's an amazing experience. And so congrats to whoever picked that one up. It should, again, make sure it ends up on CAF. So let's see. The next three pieces are from a Superman, I think an annual, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yes, Superman annual number 6 with a cover by the great Walt Simonson.
I remember that. Now, before we proceed, I'll let everybody know lot 10 was also just claimed. I'll remind everybody which one that one. That was this one right here. So 2 of the Star Wars pieces are gone. 11 and 12 are still available. All right, so let's take a look at the first page from the Superman annual. This is from the annual number 7. This is page 9. It's lot 14, priced at $350. But lots of fun stuff going on here. Great image of Superman there in the last panel. But what was it like to get to work on a project like this? I mean, a Superman annual.
It was great. I was working on Superman was great. The great Dan Thorsland brought me over. He had moved from Dark Horse to DC, and he sold Mike Carlin on giving me a shot. And that was this book, and it was so fun. And they said, "Hey, we're doing short hair Superman." At the time, long hair Superman was main continuity, and so I got to do short hair Superman. I learned a lot on this one. Oh, that car is my dad's car. It's my version of a 1967 Ford LTD Galaxy. And
did you tell him that when you
yes,
yeah,
yes, definitely. And so it was fun to show the guns melting on the top of this one. It's so fun. And Reservoir Dogs had just come out, so of course, I dressed them all up like Reservoir Dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just great to do Kal-El. I have a fun Superman story that I'd love to, that I might write someday that I can't talk about, but it's all about Kal-El. And yeah, this was drawn. Fun fact about this piece. And I still owe Mike Carlin a drink for this one. When I got this job, I shortly afterward was invited to Australia to be a guest of the cast of the Power Rangers first movie.
Oh, wow.
I know. A friend of mine was in the cast, and he's like, "Hey, man, I got a buddy ticket. I'm going to do this movie down in Australia, down in Sydney. It's what year was it? 2009, not even 1995." And Power Rangers were everything at that point. Their first movie's being made, and he's like, "Do you want to come with me?" And I'm like, "But I just got this job doing Superman." And he was like, "Dude, just draw all day, and then we'll party all night." This goes back to my Callow freelancer days. And so this was drawn in Australia on the set, near the set of the Power Rangers movie. It's a wild adventure.
Oh my gosh. I'll tell you, I am a huge Power Rangers fan. I don't think I've ever admitted that on this any show before, but my son loved the TV show, and
Yeah.
we watched it religiously, like at breakfast or probably lunch and dinner.
Mm,
And I just loved it. I mean, it was so much fun. The kid,
yeah.
I would have loved to have been making those creatures, right? I mean,
Right.
they were so just for the creatures alone. I mean, I like the Power Rangers themselves, but I always loved the villains because they were they hammed it up. I mean, but they were so fantastical. It's just something I
They
always
really were.
loved.
They got crazier as the years went by too. It was a fun show.
Absolutely,
Really
it
fun show.
was. Yep. So congrats to whoever got that one. Lot 14 was picked up. We'll take a
Oh,
look. We got two
wow.
more Superman pieces here. Now this is not the tentacle one either. The tentacle one will be the next one, but this is lot 15, priced at $250. More of an office situation here, but lots of fun. I mean, this is how this you wouldn't have Superman if you didn't have the Clark Kent side of things going on, and I think this is just a really fun page.
Thanks, Jeff Wedding. Thanks very much for grabbing lot 10. And
Oh.
gosh, yeah, being able to do Clark Kent, and Lois, my sassy, Uma Thurman looking Lois.
I didn't even see that before, but I can't unsee it.
Yeah, totally. It's absolutely Pulp Fiction. Yeah, Pulp Fiction had come out, so I was all about Tarantino. I was mad with it, and um, I loved doing Clark at the Planet, and it was gosh, is that Jimmy Olsen? I think there's Jimmy. I think Jimmy Olsen's there
Mhm.
too.
Yeah. Oh, who knows, Jimmy? So yes, you've got them all. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's Jimmy, Lois, and Clark. Well, I really went retro on Jimmy, didn't I?
yes, you did.
I was like, I'm doing down home Jimmy from back in the day.
Yeah, no, but yeah, no, it's beautiful. Lots
Thank
of
you.
fun. I love that. I love the third panel with them both facing, their desks like that. I mean, just fun storytelling throughout this whole thing. So,
Thank you.
uh, and people are lamenting missing out on lot 13. I guess a couple people wanted that one. So that was the Star Wars piece. So so this piece is still available, and it is lot 15. We have one other Superman piece to look at, so I'll just kind of flip over to that slide here. And this is the one that does have some tentacles on it. It's
Tentacles.
price $350, but you've got tentacles pretty much in panel 1, panel 2, panel 3, panel 4. So that's plenty of tentacles. Could be in the sketchbook next month for everybody. But yeah, this is fun. I mean, I like the all these panels are just really, really nicely done. I mean, I know it's just Superman and tentacles, but I love it. I mean, it's really it's fun. And I'm not a Superman guy, but I love this page.
Thank you. Yeah, it was Superman and Doctor Occult team up, which was so
Mhm.
rare, and I'm a huge Fedora guy. So when they told me I was getting to do Doctor Occult, I was super into it. And of course, having been a D&D player, I knew about interdimensional tentacles, and so,
Right.
for some Cthulhu-esque eldritch creature to come and give Kal-El a hard time, it was pretty fun to be able to do that.
No, well, this is it, it's awesome. So, I mean, outside of the work that you did on this, I mean, how often did you get to work with DC beyond this book?
This was, gosh, do I do anything else with DC after this? I think this was it. Um, yeah, this was it. Did I do anything else with DC? There
Because
may
I tried looking up your the work history, and I couldn't find any other thing, but I felt
oh,
like there's got to be something, right?
interesting story. After Red Star came out, we were going to do a Vertigo book.
Okay.
We were going to do a Vertigo book, and we ended up not, but for reasons of that are too long to go into. here, but I was really excited to do a book called Assassin at Vertigo. Unfortunately, it didn't work out. And But we ended up doing one issue independently, and then it kind of independent comics publishing is hard. We were successful with Red Star, not so successful with other stories, but it happens. We've got our cautionary tales as well as our victories, which I love to talk about. When I taught graphic novel creation, I talked about the good, the bad, and the ugly, about independent comic creation and the stuff that you have to deal with. But yeah, no, that's the only decent. And there was also, I almost did a Superman story. I was in New York. I had a meeting with Dan DiDio. I pitched him a Superman story, and it didn't happen. But it still is a darn good story. But no, so kind of, close, flirting with DC a couple times, but didn't happen.
Right. There's always a chance. Maybe you've got. I think you have a lot more art and storytelling in you. You never know.
Thanks.
So that one's still out there too. So we've got 2 more pieces to look at, and we're changing publishers and titles here to show 17. This is from Electra the Hand, issue 5, page 10. And how did you end up getting a gig to work on? I mean, this is like a prelude story. I remember this book. I read it. So again, this is priced at $300 too, by the way. But yeah, tell me a bit about how this project came about.
It was Joe Quesada and CB Cebulski were both really supportive. When Red Star came out, they made no bones about how much they had appreciated it. They were really, really just outspoken about how cool they thought Red Star was and wanted to work together with me. And so I really appreciated that. You can't beat that kind of affirmation, right? So that was really, really great to get that support. And as soon as we got a chance to work, we did, and this was it. I went to New York, is it that same trip? It might have been the same trip where I spoke to DiDio, and we lined up Electra the Hand, covers by the one and only immortal Bill Sienkiewicz, and written by CB Cebulski. And it was Feudal Japan, which from my Star Wars days, and just he's my favorite director, Kurosawa. So being able to do Feudal Japan was just, I was really excited throughout the creation of this piece, this series. And I only penciled this. I didn't ink these.
I was just going to ask, are these pencils and inks or just pencils? Because the lines are pretty crisp. So you're saying just pencils. Okay.
I can't remember who the inker is. I apologize to the person who inked this.
So inks are on a separate board.
It's inked over my pencils.
Oh, got it. I'm sorry. Duh.
Yeah.
All right. And so pencils only, but it is inked. Okay, you got me. See, I was totally I actually should have noted who inked this. I reread the story before the show, so that's my fault. All right, so this one is still out there. It's lot 17 at $300 from Electra the Hand, and then we have one other page from this as well. This is actually from the prior issue. This is issue 4, page 19, and fun battle scene here.
Yeah, this is from the climactic battle. This is my first attempt at the 9 grid, which I really enjoyed. And the 6 Cthulhu Town pages I'm going to send you, Bill, are all on the 9 grid for the most part. Yeah, I really enjoyed the 9 grid. I really wanted to kind of go full traditional. For Red Star, the layouts were very, very all over the place. Lots of big cinematic double page DPSs and lots of verticals and as much exploration as I could do. And when I came to the climax of this Marvel story, I really wanted to go traditional, build this tension between these 2 characters. They hate each other, obviously, from childhood. And I thought a good old 9 grid would be a fun way to kind of get the most out of that relationship with them. And thank you, Alberto. Yes, I'm a huge fan of manga and anime, and wanted to kind of get really into it. Big Scott McCloud fan, obviously, too. So the shot of the katanas and the knuckles right next to each other, and the 2 faces facing off, I just kind of really went as intimate as I possibly could.
And lot 18 has been claimed. Thank you to whoever's got that one. And I agree. I love the kind of face off there. 9 panels are tough, but it's like 9 panels and like those 4 panel layouts from like the classic Marvel stuff that I always see those, but they're wonderful to look at because I don't know. There's a bit of nostalgia when you see those kind of grids. So this is fun, and it's awesome. I can't wait. Now you've made me even more curious about the the Cthulhu artwork now. I can't wait to see it.
Thank you.
I think we've got 11 of the 18 lots have been claimed. So
Wow.
thank you to everyone who picked up pieces so far. We sincerely appreciate it. And I'll just in a few minutes, I'll go ahead and recap stuff. But Christian, this has been a lot of fun, man. We should do this more often. I mean, even just to hang out and talk, man. I didn't know we had so much in common.
Right? I know. I absolutely had a great time, Bill. Really great to meet you. And I would come back anytime. Let me know.
Awesome. I mean, so yeah, well, here, I'll just go ahead and recap. We've only got 8 or 7 pieces to look at now. So let's see. Lot 3 was the first one that did not sell. That was the piece from the Red Star that was on the DPS title page. So you can see, this is one of, there are other characters that were drawn separately. This whole book was kind of pulled together digitally after Christian's pencils were done, but this one is priced at $500. And again, lot 3 still available. We also have lot 5. That was the cover image that we saw earlier, and again, priced at $5,000, but it's just spectacular. Never been offered before. So if you're a Red Star fan, this might be the piece that you'd want to go after. So if you don't claim it during the show, you're more than welcome to shoot Nicole at Third Eye Comics an email after the show and let her know that you're interested in it. If it's still available, you can pick that up as well. Then next up is lot 11. This was the DPS from Star Wars Redemption, issue 1. This was a issue or pages 6 and 7. And as Christian mentioned, this one is one where he was inking himself on it. So there's some pen work and some brush work on this, but it's a really great DPS priced at $1,100. And let's see, lot 12 was the other Star Wars piece still available from Tales of the Jedi Dark Lords of the Sith, issue 3, page 7, priced at $500. And love the panel layout on this one. Just fantastic. I love when, you don't have to box in your panels, right? And the way the last panel is, I mean, it really works its way into the first panel. I love it. So this is a really creative piece of artwork. And then we've got lot 15, the Superman piece. This one, it's the office setting with Jimmy, Lois, and Clark. And this one is priced at $250. And then the tentacle piece is still out there, everybody. This is lot 16, priced at $350 from the same Superman annual. And the final piece still available is that Elektra the Hand number 5 page. And it was priced at $300. Love this piece as well. So that's not too bad. We did all right, Christian, for a first time out.
Heck yeah, and I had a great time talking to you.
Likewise. So again, if people see stuff after the show, because I know we'll probably have like 700 or 800 views on this thing by this time tomorrow. If you see a piece that didn't sell, please send out an inquiry to Nicole. She'll be happy to let you know if it's still available, and if so, she can work out the payment details. For those of you who've claimed artwork, Nicole will be sending out invoice information to you really soon. Please, take care of your payments within 48 hours. The great thing is Nicole's got all the art at Third Eye Comics, so that you make a prompt payment. It'll be in the mail by Tuesday. You'll have it before Friday next week. It's a win-win situation for everybody working with Third Eye, and I can't thank Third Eye enough for all the help that they do to put these productions together. We really appreciate their help. Christian, so again, yes, I'm going to hold you to that. We are going to have to do another show. Again, this was great, and maybe when some of the Cthulhu stuff starts getting out there, we can talk more about that. That might be a fun thing to kind of highlight and get some more eyeballs on it. So I'd love to do that.
That'd be great. Thanks, Bill. I'd love that.
All right. Well, listen, everybody, thank you for spending a few hours with us on this Saturday afternoon. We sincerely appreciate it. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the weekend. And of course, you'll be seeing me again sometime soon. I think on Monday is my next show. But Christian, thanks again. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.